Hi, and welcome to the Melanated Wise Girl AfterShow, a mini Percy Jackson podcast where we are venturing this season into the Sea of Monsters, or Percy Jackson Season 2. I'm your host, Tatyana, aka your digital Melanated Wise Girl, and today we are taking a trip to Circe's Island, the spa, and sometimes you should do that with a friend. So I want to introduce everyone to today's guest, Bezi. Say hello.
Hi everyone. I'm excited to be here. I have my day spa pass. I'm ready
Perfect.
to dive in.
Perfect. Amazing. So for the people who do not know you, please give a little bit of who you are, a little bit of an elevator pitch, as I like to say.
My name is Bezi Johannes. I am known on the internets, if you follow me, as at being a bookworm. I am a reviewer, a writer. I work in publishing, specifically in children's book publishing, and I love talking about all things Black girls in fantasy, specifically because I wrote my thesis on it and briefly had a podcast about Black girls in fantasy called Dreaming in the Dark with Raven K. Stringfield. And yeah, I am excited to talk about this episode, particularly because of said love of Black girls in fantasy and how Black girls in fantasy move in new adaptations that we see today.
So speaking on like your masters again, like what inspired you to really mix it into different, not just doing like the traditional, English or literature sort of style.
Yeah, so I did my master's of arts in English, and I really love literature. I love working in books. My goal was to get into publishing after doing my master's, but in college, I knew I loved fantasy. I had been a Tumblr warrior for a while, and I had loved advocating for the very few Black girls in these fantasy worlds that we saw growing up in the early 2000s. And I knew I loved that, and I knew I wanted to do some kind of study on fantasy and on fantasy media and adaptations, but I wasn't sure how that was going to fit into my master's. By the time I got to my master's, though, I was able to work with advisors who were really encouraging, and so I threw everything in the mix. I did a study on Black girls in specifically fantasy adaptations, which means I could look at the book to movie of it all, but also book to show or whatever, and that allowed me to write about Afrofuturism, about Black girls in fantasy, about the tropes in fantasy and what makes fantasy fantasy, and also fandom studies and how fandoms in these adaptations had reacted to the fact that Black girls were cast. All of that under the umbrella of colorblind casting, which is a thorny subject for a lot of people and something that I think is the longest lasting thread of the scholarship I did, because at the time I thought there were only gonna be a few examples, and I think everywhere I look, every year there are now more and more examples of Black girls being colorblind cast into fantasy, and into other kinds of adaptations, and each time it's a little different, but a lot of the rules that I sort of set up in my thesis as like a hypothesis or a theory seem to continue to bear fruit. Of course, based on other people's scholarship. Like, I didn't come up with the groundwork on it. Ebony Elizabeth Thomas, her book, The Dark Fantastic, is a really great read if anyone else is interested. But yeah, so there's lots to think about. And then again, Annabeth in Percy Jackson is a interesting example in her own right of what this adaptation is doing with her character as a Black girl.
Yeah, I think for sure. And I think I'm really interested when were you still in, not to like try to put a date on you, but were you still in like I don't want to like I'm asking this like
Let me immediately date myself. Go on.
date
No,
yourself,
it's
were you
fine.
in grad school when the announcement came?
I was done with grad school. No,
Okay.
I was out of grad school by then. No, so I will give a timeline and people can pretty much probably get it. I really feel like Adam Sandler. What's that meme of Adam Sandler in the group
Oh
of
my God,
kids?
sitting down in a
Yeah,
chair watching.
literally that's me about
Yeah,
to enter
me
this
every
discussion
day.
and outing myself. I finished grad school in 2020. My thesis was published. It was a very strange time, obviously, to
Yeah, yeah.
graduate school, let alone post a thesis. And I was not really sure what I'd do with my work after that. I was really proud of it, but um, I felt like it was kind of the best thing I'd do in a lot of
Yeah.
ways, and I was like, "Alright, so it's now let me enter the real world and try and get a job and, like, leave all of this thought work behind." And, yeah, and then I think the announcement came in 2022 or 2021,
I
I
think it was
can't.
2022, if I'm
Yeah,
not
so about
mistaken,
a
yeah.
couple years later when that dropped, I think the order of it was really funny because I had loved Percy Jackson growing up.
Mm,
A lot of us did.
yeah.
I loved the books, but I kinda lost track of them after a while. I read all of the Percy Jackson books. I read up to Mark of
I
Athena.
also read up to Mark
Yeah.
of Athena growing up, yeah.
Yeah, and I had read the Kane Chronicles, and then I
Mhm.
just kinda lost track, but I knew from wanting to go into publishing and then having started working in publishing at that time, that Rick had started, the Rick Riordan Presents imprint,
Yeah.
which is a really cool thing, for listeners, if you haven't looked into that. He really supported a lot of authors of color through this
Mhm.
imprint, and that was a really, that was an initiative I cited often in my own work as something that, meant a lot for what white authors can do to support authors of color and their own mythologies. Anyway, so when they announced the Percy Jackson show, I was excited for oh yay, like a book series I loved will be adapted. I don't think I thought anything particular. I was like, oh yeah, I'll probably tune in. And then they
Mhm.
announced Walker, and I was like, oh, he seems really cute. Obviously, they're going with a younger cast. And I was like, he seems like a cute kid, and he'll do great. And then I started hearing the rumblings online that Annabeth might be black, and then I was like, "Now pause." I was like, "Now I need everyone to stop the presses, because if Annabeth is black, I'm actually locked back in. Like, actually,
Yeah,
let's stop everything." And then lo and behold, yeah, they announced Leah, and I think I made, like, a TikTok video, and my TikTok account is, like, the least used social account that I have.
fair.
But I made, like, a video where I was like, "Genuinely, this is such a like, if they do this right." And at the time, again, we didn't know anything about who was gonna be, behind the scenes or the writers room or
Mhm.
whatever. I was like, "If they do this right, this is such a, interesting colorblind casting." Because I was like, "I know this is colorblind." Like, I had no
Mhm.
illusions, necessarily about Rick specifically writing Annabeth as a black girl. I think.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. I think we all need to be honest about that. I don't necessarily think there are people that's a majority opinion. I have seen sometimes people be like, let's give Rick more credit. I'm like, no, actually, but he's not. I think it's a smart move. This is a good character. Where when you write, if you think about it, if you write to it in the show, it really can reinform a lot about her character, her being black. And I was like, this the concept, before
That's
the
at the
meeting.
over
I was like, "Oh, we're thinking thoughts now," and that was a really exciting moment. I think, again, with all of my background in writing about this, I think a lot of the other characters. I don't know how familiar you are with. I'm sure you are. Again, if you're a black girl of a certain age, you know these characters about to say.
Yeah.
Gwen and BBC's Merlin, like
Mhm.
Abby and Sleepy Hollow, like these are all characters that we saw really be marginalized, oppressed, stifled, disenfranchised. Um, because the writers didn't know what to do with them being black, or played by black actresses in these new interpretations of old worlds. And Annabeth is a character that's modern, that's, a lot of her characteristics, a lot of overachieving black girls can relate to, a lot of her
Mhm.
marginalization already in the books was a lot of things black girls could relate to. So it was really exciting to think about.
No, I agree with everything, like, I think my first example would be, like, a character would I think back to I guess people can go back and forth, but just, like, Iris West,
Yeah,
the Flash is, like, my first, like, eg I think the most when I was like, "Oh, okay,"
sure.
so
Yeah,
going into this being like, "Oh, she's different," and then seeing how people react to a casting, and it's a canonic event. I feel like every black girl has, like, that one casting. They're like, "Oh, this
yes,
was great," but and then
yeah,
they go online. While I didn't necessarily was like, Annabeth was always meant to be black, I always just envisioned her black growing up because I just self-inserted myself
sure.
into so many things, being a book reader.
Very fair.
So seeing the movies were kinda like, "Oh, let me actually go online and let me figure this out."
Oh, no.
Oh.
I mean,
Funny.
no offense to Alexandra Daddario, who's lovely and
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I think listen, I very much relate to the self-insert, although I think there's a whole conversation here that I really love having with
Yeah.
other Black girls about, like, whether you were able to self-insert or whether you had, like, a cognitive dissonance constantly in the back of your brain when you'd read white characters and not be them, but relate to them, and those are not exclusionary things, like, you could have both going on, but
Yeah.
I think the cognitive dissonance, because I was one of the kids who had a lot of cognitive dissonance, like, I'd read characters like
Mm.
Annabeth and be like, "Yeah, I'm her," but, like, they're white, and, like, what does that mean? Like, what is that psychology in your head? And I that is such a the fan this kind of fandom studies, I think, overlaps with so many really interesting fields, and I think there's
Yeah.
psychology in there too. Bell Hooks' Race and Representation, which is in her, Oppositional Gaze, which is in Race and Representation, her essay collection, is such an interesting look at, like, what does it mean to have the oppositional gaze when you are watching or reading or consuming something that is not only, like, not you, but, like, opposed to your existence. There's something very, like, um, odd and strange and, like, that has to go on in your brain to, like, be able to relate and watch something where you are not seen and where you are not, acknowledged, and, in fact, where you are going to be oppressed, like, if you were in that
Mm.
world. And that is something again, like you said, every Black girl has their canonical moment.
Yeah.
For me to continue to date myself, Gwen from BBC's Merlin, like I said, was
Mhm.
like I was at that age. I was like a young enough where I really loved her character. I really loved Arthurian Legends. I really loved the show. I thought it was really fun. And then I went online and I was like, oh, this is bad.
Yeah.
I was like, y'all are evil to her. And that was like my activation on Tumblr where I started like writing meta analyses in like people's like reblogs of like
Mhm.
everything you're saying is incorrect and actually, like, you're racist, and I, like, really went hard, and I think there's a lineage definitely to be drawn of, like, these characters. Kat Graham's, Bonnie from Vampire Diaries, another one, like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
just so many we just the all of these women, and I think the interesting thing about Iris, like you mentioned, I think the internet at that moment was closest to what the internet is now, and it was like the multi-platform social media, Twitter being like the beginning of this like live tweeting sort of thing,
Yeah.
Abby around Sleepy Hollow time, like those were kind of happening in conjunction, and I think the way people use social media became a lot more direct at these actresses. Um,
Yeah.
which became very like, as opposed to, like, commenting on a blog, like, a lot of the Merlin stuff was, like, blog stuff or, like, people would comment in forums when,
Yeah.
episodes would come out or, like, recap articles or whatever, but Twitter really brought about this, like, they could tag the actresses, it was
They can
just
have direct contact with the
yeah, with
person,
or if it was not the actresses, it was other
the
people in the show.
writers.
The writers, the showrunners, like, it was really I think that to your point about how Iris, I think there was that moment I was older at that point, but I remember that being such a that changed both positively, but in this conversation negatively, a lot of the way
Yeah.
fandom operated. It was kind of a really scary time. Like, it was exciting to be like, "Oh, I could at the showrunner that I really liked and, like, be like, 'Oh my god, I love this episode.'" But, like, suddenly you were like, "Oh, like, these people are being, like, harassed, like, actively
Yeah.
harassed." And you're watching it happen in real time in the hashtags of these shows. Like, yeah, that was
Yeah.
wild, I think.
It's so funny because, like, I feel like I growing up on that point, this is the most random niche, like, fandom to, like, start in, but it was, like, Disney Channel Twitter, which is very niche.
Sure.
Yeah, and
Sure.
for some
Yeah,
reason,
yeah.
everyone all the shows, like, at this point, wanted to have their writers have Twitter accounts to interact
Yep,
as
yep.
fans.
Absolutely. Mhm.
I was on the outskirts of it when particularly Girl Meets World was a big thing, which doesn't even have a black girl to begin with, so that's a
But that was a wild and I was a little bit
yeah.
older, but I heard the tales. I heard
Just
the
fights that I would see, I was like, "Oh my" like, the writers would, like, be fighting with
Mhm, mhm.
the fans on Twitter defending their writing choices, and I was like,
Crazy stuff.
This is not good."
You know
So
what
yeah.
happened later on with, like, much this is much later, but, like,
Mm.
you know how, like, especially it's happening unfortunately still now, but, like, when Trump started getting on Twitter and, like,
Yeah.
had to, like, take stuff he was saying on Twitter as, like, presidential announcements, you know what I mean? Like, that became canon in a way
Yeah,
because he said it from the
yeah.
presidential account. That's what was happening. The listen, I'm about to draw a crazy connection, but follow me. The
Okay.
precedent for that was set when showrunners started coming on Twitter and, like, saying canon, like, into Twitter on social media that was not in the show, but, like, they were
Yeah.
responding to fans and being like, "Oh, this is the interpretation," and fans would take that screenshot and be like, "This is the interpretation." I'd be like, "Yeah, but that's not in the show. What are you talking about? Like, you can't this is, like, a very odd and sh interesting but strange direct way that, like, canon is being rewritten as we speak by the creators themselves because they are, like, fighting with fans in the comments, and fans are like, "The showrunner said this," and I'm like, "N okay, but, like, that's not what they put on the page or on the screen, like, we can't
Yeah.
are we gonna acknowledge all of this as canon?" I mean, I guess we are, we're so far past that now, but I think that, again, like, it just really changed the way fandom operated, that showrunners could be like, "Yeah, your interpretation's correct," or "Your interpretation's incorrect," like, directly, and then the person would take that and be like, this is it." And I'm like, who are they?" Like,
Twitter user 57. I feel like it's like how we got to the point now where somebody can put serif black text on
yes.
any picture and they're like, this is official. And I'm like, what is your primary source?
Like, mama, let's research. Like, I am begging. I'm begging. It's the lack of critical thinking.
At
It's like,
all.
again,
Oh my
I
God.
think it's all foregrounded.
When do we like, especially going back to like Percy Jackson, and they are like kids involved in this adaptation?
Mhm,
How do they be able to, are they ever, probably never again, which sucks, safely go on social media or interact with people that might like the show without them being super parasocial? So
sure.
it's like, is there a way to find a safe space in doing that? Like, none of the actors should ever get on Twitter, like, or have a Twitter account.
I simply believe in separation of fandom and state. Like,
Same.
I feel like fundamentally a lot of this closeness is incorrect. As fun as it is sometimes, the harm of it has been, like we just honestly, like we just discussed, has
Yeah.
been catastrophic and has set catastrophic precedent for, like, corners of the internet that have nothing to do with fandom. And I would rather walk it all back than give more access. You know, like
Yeah.
I especially for kids, I would rather walk it all the way back. Unfortunately, which sucks because kids are children of the internet, and, like, I
Mhm.
especially, like, Leah, you can see how much she loves being on social, like, I don't wanna take that joy for them, but it sucks because I think in a lot of ways, fandom has to operate separately from the state being the, like, you know, the
Yeah.
show, the writers, the showrunners, like, every time the waters, are dipped into, like, every time it crosses, it's a problem.
Like a week or 2 ago, there was bringing up, because fandom is so, like, not in its own separate spaces anymore because of blogs and, like, everything's on social media now, and we're all in the same place, but, like, the, journalist brought up a fandom discussion in an interview with one of the minor actors, I
Yes.
believe,
Oh, yeah.
and as somebody who also did journalism, who
Yeah, that's
is
cool.
just like,
Love that.
it was just great, but I'm also like,
Yeah.
as like having that, like, and being a content creator within both worlds, I was like, I would not
Mm-mm.
bring in that to an actor. Like, you have to find a balance, which for some people, especially journalists who maybe not have both worlds, who
Yes.
have not been in both worlds, they don't know that. At some point, you're like, if somebody asked that question to you, would you feel comfortable answering that within it? So it's like, where do you balance that? So it's like, yeah, I was like, if they, I believe, like,
I think Percy Jackson is such an interesting example because
yeah,
I think the reason why a lot of journalists have been pulling recently from fandom stuff, fandom from fandom topics, is because a lot of journalists, entertainment journalists, weren't necessarily clocking for Percy Jackson, which is fair. It's a
yeah,
children's
it's fair.
show. It is explicitly a children's show, and I think explicitly a children's show usually doesn't get the kind of press attention that Percy Jackson is getting because it's doing so well for Disney Plus, and Disney Plus is pushing it. a lot more than they usually push. But I think from a, like, logistic standpoint, I see how journalists are like, "Okay, what do we talk about?" You know, especially
Yeah.
kids, and I think they think they're being young and hip and cool and, like, locked in, and I don't say that derogatorily because I understand, how that comes about. Like, I
Mhm.
can see some of the steps and how we get to that point, but it's still a lot of the Percabeth questions asked to, Walker and Leah have been insane, have been
Yeah.
absolutely deranged, and I'm like, I actually genuinely need everyone to, like, stop. Like, I needed to cut the cameras. Like, it's genuinely I'm like, we all know. We know,
You
and I
mean they know, we know, we all know.
they know, we know, everyone knows, and I think journalists a lot of journalists, it seems like, again, you get a list of approved questions, you know better than
Yeah,
I. Like,
yeah.
I know some of how this media works, so I understand how we got to the point of, like, them being like, "So, Percabeth," and I and I'm like, I get it, but it's also like, I need everyone to, like you said, use the common sense of, if you were a 15-year-old being asked about how you're going to play a love interest to your other, or if a 16-year-old played to
Yeah.
your other 16-year-old co-star, and, like, the way it's being asked too, like, it's not even a, like, the
It's not
actual
even
craft of
'cause
it or whatever, it's like,
yeah.
it's literally, like, it's kind of being asked like it's a sly thing, like it's like
Like,
a
there have an underlying
thing.
meaning to it.
Yeah, and I'm like, "Leave these kids alone."
Alone.
They are kids. It's awkward. It's awkward. It's awkward
Yeah.
to be a 16-year-old playing a 16-year-old's love interest, I think. Those people and to that those articles, because that used to also be, like, you would only see those types of articles in, like, 17 or, like, J17 magazine, like,
Yeah,
these
yeah,
very,
but they
like
don't exist anymore, so
exactly.
it's
So
not
now it's social, and now it's tweets that get thousands of likes and get interacted with millions of times, and it's yeah. It's just it's again, access has changed, I think, in a lot of ways, so.
I'm interested first and foremost, just your first thoughts. Like, what's, like, the biggest thing for you coming out of this episode? There's so much, but, like, coming out of this episode in particular.
I think on my first rewatch, my initial thoughts were like, "Oh, they kept a lot of things. They
Mm,
definitely kept a lot of things, but they definitely changed some things." And at this point in the game, right, we've been here a minute, like, we've seen first season of the show, we're halfway through the second season. I knew to expect changes, but I was like, "Oh, this is the things that they've changed were not important enough to make me, like, mad or anything, but, like,
yeah,
it's, like, very somewhat small tweaks that made a big difference in how certain things landed." And I had to kind of, like, pause, think about it, and sit with my reaction to those changes, because I was like, interesting. Like, what I had to, like, think, and again, I this is what I love about fandom after, like, hating on fandom
yeah.
not hating on fandom. We're talking about critiquing
Yeah,
fandom.
everybody being
Gonna
like,
get
"We
into
s
this.
it sucks, but"
What
and then
I
you go
love
online.
about fandom is that
Yeah.
I love going into seeing what other people are saying about the show
Mm,
and having people articulate thoughts, like the tweet, quote, retweet of it all that, like,
yeah,
builds a layer of analysis where I'm like, "Oh, that's how that hits." Like, I kinda felt it, but, like, how to articulate, like, how are other people saying this? Like, I love seeing other people's reactions that make me think deeply or deeper about a moment that I was like, "This feels significant, but how is it fitting into what I think it's fitting into?" Um, yeah, I think the sirens part was the one. We all knew it was gonna be crazy, but I think
yeah.
that the changes to that were so fascinating.
Like, I think one thing that I had on here just, like, since we're getting into it is, like, the book to screen changes. I think out of
Yes.
every episode, this was the episode that I think maybe because this was such the most anticipated out of this
Yes.
book and probably one of the most anticipated out of this season, it's the
Exactly.
one that people are looking at the most to
Interesting to me
yeah.
because Rick acknowledges that. I think there was some interview floating around where it was like Rick was like, he was like, "I know a lot of eyes are gonna be on this episode," because a lot of the fandom, like, cites this as a cornerstone moment of the series, to him, and I find it really interesting, and again, like, positive in a lot of ways,
Mhm.
interesting that they still were, like, knowing that there were gonna be eyes on this of people who felt a lot of things about key details in these scenes still changed a significant amount. But, like, not in a again, we'll talk
Yeah.
about it, but, like, they made changes that I feel were very, like, well thought out and interesting, but
Yeah.
significant. knowing how much scrutiny. Because I feel like the safer thing would have just been to try and
Do it book to screen and see
yeah,
what
and
happens.
play it very safe.
Yeah.
Even if they had been, even as they're making other changes, I was like, maybe this will be more of a conservative episode in the changes
Mhm.
because they know other eyes are gonna be on it. Um, and they didn't. They changed a significant amount. So I find it
Yeah.
really interesting. I think it's really interesting as that happens, and it says a lot about the aims of the story, the aims of the writers, the larger aims of the show.
Yeah, I agree. I tweet sometimes I learned that I shouldn't tweet at 6 AM in the morning right after I watch the episode because
Fair.
something always hits fan. But which is why I was just like, "I'm just gonna enjoy this, but I know this is going to be the debate for another week." And I was like, "This is ultimately, like, if you are somebody that likes seeing as much as a book to an adaptation as possible, you're not gonna like this season in particular, or you're not gonna like this episode in particular. But if you're somebody that's like, just no matter what, because like it changes so much. But like, I think if you're somebody that's like, okay, let's see what it is, or maybe just upon a second rewatch, which a lot of people like rewatched it again, went, actually, it's whatever. Because
Yeah.
I think also for me, like looking back on it, I recently reread Sea of Monsters, and I was just like, whatever they got to do to
Yes.
move the plot, because I'm looking more of it in like a TV writing stance than I am. And in terms of how they are shaping up the season, if they were to go back to how it was done in the books, it wouldn't have made sense, I
Yeah.
think.
No, I
So,
totally agree, and I'm a
yeah.
big proponent. I think everyone can feel differently about this, and I
Yeah.
think a lot of opinions are valid. I'm a big proponent. I enjoy adaptations that go crazy with,
Mm,
internal logic and cohesion, right?
yes, I agree.
Enchanted is one of my favorite movies, and I think that one is one that every time I bring this up, I cite it because I think most people who've seen that movie know exactly what I mean when I say Enchanted is an insane movie. It is
Oh,
not the
insane.
book at
Yeah.
all. It is the farthest from the book you could possibly get while still using the characters' names. Uh, but it is and, like, the bare premise.
Mhm.
But it is a really fun movie, and I think it works in a lot of ways because the internal logic of the movie is consistent. Um, but it is as an adaptation, like, there's a part of me that's like, if I was Gail Carson living, I would be like, like a little bit of nausea, like, the little bit of throw up in my mouth, like, seeing this, but, like, it's good, it's fun, it's just insane, and
Yeah.
I think going into the show overall, I was like, "I'm willing to see where they go," because I
Yeah.
also think the thing that I was looking for the most is that I need the storytelling to again, because I love Black girls and fantasy, I need the storytelling to kind of twist and mold itself to really give Annabeth the interiority that she deserves, especially
Yeah.
that she's played by a Black girl. And I think by and large, because the show is delivering that, again, especially in this episode and episode 4 as well, I'm
Mhm.
willing to forgive a lot of other things.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting as they do these changes. I'm like, this is again, it just says a lot about the themes that this show has decided to explore in the books, like what things they actually are pulling out and what things they're leaving behind.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm down for it. It did take me though. I was definitely one of those people where I was like, I need to do a second rewatch because I want to understand a little more what they're pulling out here. 'Cause
Well, I think that's a great way to segue into just one of the first bigger changes is how they get to Circe's. We don't, and I think this was one of the ones where I was like, "Oh, this is like a production change, right?" Because
Mhm.
like there's certain things that you have to change. The decision was in the writer's room of being like, "Okay, we can do a scene where Annabeth gets, they drift off into sea but then we have to shoot it and then or we can spend that money instead on the spa and production of that and put more money into that." So like we started off with Percy just waking up and Annabeth being like, "Hey, surprise. We lived."
We're here. We alive. Yeah, no, that scene is really funny. I agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. I think it's a production thing. It's also a time thing. It's like
Yeah,
we need to
just
start the
get there.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that happened a lot in season 1 and I think it's happened a little less in season 2, but I
Mhm.
think they were like we just need to be there. Like
Yeah.
by and large they were like let's skip the getting and let's get there. Which I'm
Yeah.
like fair. But yeah, no, I found that the opening really funny, mostly because Annabeth is like, "No, I've already looked around actually. Don't know where we are though." She's like, "I don't know if I think the line is like something like, "I don't know if we are in another big ship or if we're still
Yeah.
at sea." She's like, I was awake for 15 minutes before you. I still got no
Yeah.
answers. Sorry." Which I think is a fair enough way to be like, you get the audience um
Caught up, yeah.
involvement in, like, introducing what's happening to them while still being like, "They're already here." So, it's a good marriage of the, like, again, logistics, stuff and the, like, we still need to have that moment for the audience to reorient themselves, for Percy to
Mhm.
realize everyone else is gone, possibly dead, probably dead in his mind, and, then the moment of introducing what CC's is.
Yeah, I think CC's I one thing that actually the CC's as a whole, just, like, introducing to that, I kinda like the angle of them going CC's a MLM boss.
Oh, I
Uh,
loved it.
it's
Really,
hilarious.
it took me a second again to realize what
Yeah,
that in a lot of ways, that actually kinda threw me, and I didn't
yeah.
expect it to throw me, because I was like, "They're doing something here. What are they doing with this
Mm.
angle for her?" And I realized the angle, like you said, is, like, it's MLM final it's also, like, life coach. There's clips of parallels in how she talks about how heroes come and heroes go and they leave her behind, but there's also the very much where she's like, "I've grown, guys, like, I've I've
I
I've
mean
evolved," like, she's like, it's an interesting kind of
yeah.
positioning of a character that we haven't seen yet, because I think, to go back to season 1, like, Medusa is an example of a
Mhm.
character where they changed a lot about her, but they still have her in that kind of the same attitude that she is in the books, where she's very resentful, it's fresh,
Yeah.
the wound is fresh. In some ways, Circe is obviously acting as an antagonist and doing
Mm.
antagonist things, but the attitude that she has is very like, "The myth you knew, I'm beyond
I'm
grown."
changed.
'Cause she doesn't deny, like, Annabeth's like, "I know who you are, I figured it out," and Cersei's like, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
Cersei, like, but everything you hear is incorrect because 'cause I'm an evolved person." And I
It's
was like, "You know
giving
what? Interesting."
you know when, like, in 2020 where, like, a bunch of people posted the black square on
Oh,
Instagram?
oh, no. The
And we're
minute
like, "Racism is
Oh,
bad."
absolutely. Absolutely. The minute she reached out and started touching
Oh
Annabeth's
my
hair,
god.
I think all of the black girls watching the show
I
all
went,
we
"Oh."
all went, "Now hang on, pause, like, no, no." And Leah wonderfully, again, in these moments, again, you see her being, um, allowed to play that as a black,
Yeah.
because she reacts like a black girl
She's
would,
like,
where she's like,
uh.
"Back off."
My
Um
favorite moment about that is Percy even is, like, weirded out. He's like, "What the"
Yeah. Well, the vibes are strange, but
like,
I think the vibes, they could have not done that moment. I think it's a
yeah.
very, again, we're not probably not gonna get an answer to this. I wonder if it was, like, in the script or if it's in, like, if it
Mhm.
was, like, a physical choice, because I'm like, the vibes are already weird, you didn't necessarily need that moment, but that moment is a interesting moment where Annabeth is a black girl in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, Annabeth is specifically a black girl reacting to a white woman touching her hair in that moment. I don't think it's reading into it to be like, that's how
Yeah.
Leah's playing it. Um, and I think these are the moments, like, there was a whole kerfluffle on my corner of the in our corner of the fandom, probably, where you saw it
Yeah.
too, where someone was like, "I don't think Annabeth should be," like, "I think the show should be colorblind toward Annabeth and not
Yeah,
girls,"
yeah,
and
dude,
I did
briefly.
quote retweet that, and I was like, "Actually, I don't think that's correct." And I think the
Yeah.
problem, I understood why the person thought that way, because I was like, I understand how, when you think about blackness and fantasy
Mhm.
adaptations, especially created by white people, as when blackness exists in those worlds, it's negative. I can see how you're like, "I don't want Annabeth to be a black girl because I don't want her to be marginalized in the show." But
Yeah,
I'm
I
like, but
get
I
that.
think the show has established enough, um credit to it at this point, where I can say they are doing more with Annabeth than that. Like, I think there are negative aspects to it, like, this, for example, is a, like,
Yeah.
a negative I don't know, but, like, I think there's a lot of ways, particularly as now we get into the Annabeth and Thalia of it all,
Yeah,
which we
yeah.
started to see in episode 4, that, like, adding blackness into the story, adding both of these characters as specifically black girls, becomes a very rich, wonderful, interesting thing to dive into and adds another layer to the relationship. A positive, interesting layer of like, what does it mean for these characters to have community with one another? I think there's something really powerful when a Black character in a story isn't tokenized and has
Yeah.
other Black characters around them. Her being Black becomes this like community building thing. Same thing with Annabeth and Clarice. We're seeing them
Yeah.
respecting one another. We're seeing that kind of like different relationship implied, and I think that that's a moment where it's like, yes, it's valuable and important that we're seeing this as being depicted by 2 Black girls.
Yeah, no, I
Anyway, side
agree. No,
rant.
you're good. I agree wholeheartedly as somebody who's did way too much research on Annabeth being Black, and we'll have to do it again
Yes, your
for
seminal video, your very
yeah, for
like
season 2.
video, yeah.
But it's so interesting because, like, it's going back to, like, the relationships of it all and, like, Annabeth, like, how her character is in Chance, like, it's this alone is really interesting that you can tell, I think particularly with Percy Jackson, which I think it works because you can do colorblind casting, is because the minute they decided that Leah was gonna be An they pushed into meetings of how are we gonna change this to make sure that we do this correctly. Um, and I mean, we even see, like, down to the behind the scenes of her hair during this transformation of it still incorporates her braids, a very Black forward style, right? And not like Western I don't wanna say like
Like, they
Western,
didn't
like
just put her in a straight wig,
yeah, they didn't
which
just give her
very
a
much
silk
could
press in a
have it
dream.
have done, like, not this show, but, like, other shows in the past.
Oh my god, they
Where
would've made her
people
pay for
make
the silk
fun of her,
press.
they slap that wig on her, and they call it a day, and it's done and it's over. Yeah, I
Yeah,
absolutely agree with you. I think, I think the writers have talked about this,
yeah,
significantly. I think Rick has talked about this. I think Leah has talked about this. I think it truly seems to be a behind the scenes collaboration between a lot of different between Leah, I think her mom also, like,
yeah,
shout out to Mrs. Jeffries. Like there's enough happening behind the scenes that we've seen, that we've heard of, where I'm like, I think everybody here is talking. Like everyone
yeah,
is involved in like how do we be respectful, right? I
mhm,
think whereas there's still more to see, and I'm interested to see if we see it of like other ways, like in the story itself, it can be more and more explicit and more like well, not explicit, but, like, the other ways we can see it in the writing, but I
yeah,
think in terms of the depictions, I think the show has established that they're gonna be respectful, and I think
yeah.
that's really lovely to see, and it's an important thing to see. Would've made a big difference to me at, that age to see.
I one thing that I found really funny, was them watching as somebody got eaten by the,
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm sure you also were on the side of the fandom where people were like, "It's gonna be Odysseus," and I was like, "Now here's the thing."
no.
Like, there's no way they're wasting this on Odysseus. Like, because I'm like, either they pull that card or they don't, but they're not gonna
Yeah,
pull it for this episode. Like, this is not the episode where you pulled that, like,
no.
Odysseus. Because it is true that Annabeth has been explicitly mentioning Odysseus, like, a couple times now, and it could be foregrounding something, but I'm also like, this is not the episode where you're gonna like,
Yeah,
if he's gonna be pulled in, I feel like if there's gonna be a cameo or a flashback or something crazy like that, um, it would be for Polyphemus. Like, it would be in the whatever that, outsmarting, outwitting, aspect of it in maybe episode 6 or episode 7, but it wouldn't be for this. So, anyway, I just thought it was funny that, yeah, it's just some rando
some guy, and they're like, "He's on a jet ski," and you I was like, "What is
he's in
happening?"
full armor in a jet, which, like, we know Camp Half-Blood, like, we know we've established the mix of
Yeah,
aesthetics, but I just thought that was so I was like, "You're gonna have this man in full Greek armor on a jet ski," and that's fascinating because that did not establish because he is in the episode just some random guy.
yeah,
I was like, "Is he a Camp Half-Blood demigod? Is
or
he
is he
just a
can't
random demigod who still has access to Greek armor? Like, is he a demigod from before, like, from long enough
Oh,
ago that had been there so long that he has his own armor? But then Zadie, we've met
yeah, it's been there for, like,
character.
50
She's aged.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but she's aged. Like, she's been there a while and she's aged. It's not a island out of time like Calypso, you know? Like,
yeah,
I was like, "Who is this man? We're never gonna get that answer, but he's gone." He's
He's Siren Chow is what
I
the
mhm, mhm. Crazy.
I found it so funny that, like, they literally was like, "Wow, that's crazy," and then they just went back to doing what they were doing. There
Yes, yes,
no ceremony, no
like,
nothing, like
well, I mean, that's a sign of how much Circe had brainwashed them. Again,
yeah.
I think the show made an interesting choice. It is an adaptational choice to downplay Circe's magic, but to
Mhm.
up her like cult vibes. Like
Yeah.
her magic is still there, but I think in the books, I haven't reread Sea of Monsters recently. I was planning to, and then life, but
Yeah.
I remember it being like Percy feeling her magic kind of like blurring things for him.
Yeah.
I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong since you reread it more recently, and I feel like in the show they were like they've established she has magic, but it's a little less like her magic is actively blurring people's minds. Like we don't see like
Yeah.
a kind of sheen of whatever, and it's just more that they bought into the cult. They bought into the MLM. You know, everyone's like we're sticking on the island because we believe in the program.
Yeah. One thing about, what I remember explicitly when, like, rereading, because 'cause it's been a minute, but when I reread
Yeah.
the book was I don't know why the scene in the book is way shorter because
Mm,
it's just Percy's POV. So it's literally like them getting there.
sure.
It's like he's not in makeover, it's them getting there, him looking in the
Yeah.
mirror, but
Yeah.
in that he's like seeing like a better version of himself. So he's
Yes.
seeing like
Yes.
no he's just seeing himself without like
Mhm.
acne or anything, like
Mhm.
as a jock, typical jock, and then he just gets turned into a guinea pig like immediately after that.
Yes, yes. That makes sense.
So
You're right.
we don't see most of the stuff that Annabeth would have went through, which is like the
Yeah,
makeover, the transformation, the begging, it's just like instantly like I'm a guinea pig. Annabeth came in dressed up. I don't know what she was doing over there. And
yeah.
then, it's and then she
Well,
goes and saves
also,
him.
and correct me if I'm wrong, it's also Rick keeps the part of the mythology where it's like Cersei explicitly hates men, and
Yes.
so that's the thing, is that you're right, Percy's POV is short because he immediately is a boy, and Cersei's like, "No, shut that down."
That's basically yeah, they get separated almost immediately when they
Yeah,
get there.
she's like, "No, boy." No, I like that the show separated itself from that. I think, again, it's a choice, but I think it's an interesting choice because what it does, again, is it makes Cersei more of a threat to all demigods and a threat
Yeah.
to, like, her it this is not Rick's fault because the mythology is the what the like, he was pulling from a specific aspect of the
Yeah.
mythology when he did this, but I think there's something very, like, trite about having Cersei just be like, "And no men," like,
Yeah.
in the kid's story, because what that effectively does is it just makes her an obstacle only for Percy, and it kind of even, like, even though Annabeth has to outsmart Cersei and, like, gives Percy the vitamins and everything in the book, but she's
Yeah.
not really an antagonist for Annabeth in the books because she's not opposed to Annabeth, like, she's like, "Annabeth, you're cool, you're a girl, girls," like, it's
Yeah.
it feels a
Girls,
little bit
girl.
Girls Girl, and it's like, sure, but it's a little trite. I think in the show, this choice makes her more of an antagonist to both of them because what she and again, and thematically, like the instead of making her show Percy, like you said, his improved appearance, like him being his more perfect self,
Yeah.
um, it is showing him his fatal flaw. Which the fact that the show is like, this is the thing we're gonna explore. I'm like, sure, because it is really interesting and it is something the books nod to repeatedly, but it doesn't really it's not as emphasized at this point in the series, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly. It becomes more important later. But I think it's fascinating the show is like, no, this is the thing we're gonna start threading more explicitly now. And I think it makes more sense to have Cersei be an antagonist specifically because she's like, I'm going to help you become your better self by correcting this specific thing that you is at the core of what's wrong about you. Like,
Yeah.
what's wrong about you, as opposed to like fixing your acne, Again,
Yeah.
an understandable concern for a teenager in the world, but like for the larger thematic goal of the show, it seems like this makes her more interesting and more threaded to the core story of what we need to understand about these characters.
Yeah, I found just like how they weave that in very really interesting of like having the whole mirror scene going into it is just like so interesting because first you have like Percy's like comment of like I've done evaluations before and I'm like, oh, he's been through it.
Well, and he says
Um,
like because Annabeth is scared.
yeah. Oh,
Like,
Annabeth's
I don't wanna
terrified.
again,
Yeah.
so fascinating because she's like sorry, not to cut off your thought,
No,
because
you're good.
but only because it's so interesting because she is he sees she is scared, but later on she's like, "Chiron already gave me my evaluation. I know what's wrong with me." Like,
Yeah.
that level of put upon confidence, we know is put upon like, we know is a mask
Mm,
because we see her in that initial reaction be like, visibly like, "I don't wanna do this." Like, "What is that mirror gonna show me?"
yeah.
Um so I just found that and Percy stepped then in that moment.
Which is like a perfect thing of his fatal flaw kinda his thing of wanting to protect others going into him finding out his fatal flaw is, well, in Cersei's eyes, manipulated as it being very, very dangerous of him having empathy, and the first thing him seeing I bring this up more as a laugh, but somebody brought up on my Black Annabeth video in the comments, they're like, "I would love if they looked in the mirror and saw their book counterparts." And I said, "I would
I
turn off my television
yeah,
screen."
I was cut the camera, cut the camera, cut it. Actually, I walk back everything nice I said about the show, especially when that happened. I was like, "No. No, I think this is much more interesting. I think this is
Yeah.
more, deep." I actually think you know, the dangerous thing about a life coach, the dangerous thing about an MLM life coach is that she's
Yeah.
not wrong. Like, it's not that she is like you said, like, she's twisting it, she's manipulating it, but she's not
Mhm.
incorrect in that it
Yeah.
is very dangerous because it's his empathy and his love for his friends and his
Yeah.
loyalty, but it's also his, like, self-sacrificial tendencies, like,
Oh my
he sees
god,
love
all of season 1.
bro, that's the other one, I mean, to speak of episodes 5s, like, episode 5 in season 1 is such a dramatic change from the books, but
Yeah.
it really underscores again, like, it shows the show has this very internal cohesion, like, they know what they're doing, and they've
Mhm.
established it, because that is the first expression we see of Percy being like, I care for you, therefore I will sacrifice myself for you. This is a
Yeah.
one-to-one for him. He's like, "This is what love is." And then we see in opposition, again, not to jump ahead because 'cause we're gonna talk about it, but
Yeah.
Annabeth's idea of love is pride. It's Athena being proud of her, it's everyone being proud that she thought this like, it's she sees when she does something good, other people are proud of her, and that is love. Like, that's her brain. That's what her trauma and her brain have connected to love. And
Yeah.
Percy's idea of love is I will sacrifice myself for you. Both are not both
We
have
should have the middle.
and I know these are I think there's a tendency in the fandom to be like, well, Annabeth's is like wrong. And it's like, no,
No,
Percy's
they're
is also
both
kind of
bad.
wrong. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, Percy's is also kind of incorrect. Like, yes, it's loyalty, but it's also this like throw yourself on the sword type thing. And that's not actually that in itself is not love. Like
Yeah.
it can be part of love. The desire comes from a good place, but it is ultimately the people you love don't want to see you
To
die.
die.
Okay. Actually, don't kill yourself. You
I
know?
think something really interesting to go back to Seaweed Brain podcast and their interview with Shay last week is that I probably might have seen the clip online
Mhm,
is
mhm.
Shay
Yes,
saying Percy is do
yes,
right and Annabeth is do it right. And I think this showcases in this episode particularly of their fatal flaws going into that and then like Percy looking and like seeing all the things he's basically done wrong. He thinks he's done wrong.
yeah,
And is now we're just like he's like, "Oh, well, screwed up." And then of course he runs out and I often like to say that the gift that was kind of passed around first last season, GIF, whatever you call it, was them staring at each other while Grover was doing the
Yes. Yes.
song, like
Oh,
that. Oh
yes.
my god, it was all over my timeline
All
for 3
over.
weeks.
High def. Like, that scene is dark as anything. And someone blew up that scene, like, made it larger, lightened it, like, perfect exposure, and then that GIF made the rounds. So,
It
absolutely.
this
Absolutely.
season's I didn't know what it was gonna be. I thought honestly it was gonna be last week, but no, no.
No, it was always
It's
gonna be this.
this one is Percy looking at I'm laughing thinking about it because I don't know if I have the exact line, but Percy basically saying that he like, of course, he's not in the right state of mind when he's saying this, and he's a lot of the crazy things he's saying this season is because he doesn't clock the fact that his feelings for Annabeth are
Yeah.
not n I don't wanna say not normal, but not friend normal. They're thinking they're
Yes, yes, yes,
platonic.
yes, yes. Well, that's how love again, like, love is in a lot of forms, and I think
Yes.
and I think
Yes.
Percy is more used to the idea of love than Annabeth
Y
is. What's the quote that's been going around that's like, "Percabeth is a slow burn because Percy is slow?" I think that
yeah.
I think that's a little mean, but I think that the idea of it being, like the thing that I find correct about it is I think Percy is just used to caring about people, like, used to loving people, and so he's not clocking that his own feelings are changing. And I think Annabeth has the
Yeah.
opposite problem where she's not used to caring about and she's not noticing her feelings are changing because she doesn't know what to look for at all. Like,
Yeah. Both of them, for different reasons, are not
yeah.
realizing that their feelings are indeed becoming more romantic than
Mhm. Mhm.
platonic, but they're both seeing it right now as platonic, which it
Exactly.
basically is until season 3.
Yeah, 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 yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. So the line that he says, the if it was a stick between you and Olympus, I'd
This
burn it down. It's a crazy line. But in his mind and again, like, Walker does a wonderful job in playing it as, like,
Yeah,
scary thing for him. It is a his loyalty is so to his friends and so to the people
yeah,
that he cares about that he knowing what was said in the previous episode, or 2 episodes ago, um, when he was told the prophecy, like, he could make a choice that would destroy Olympus. He's like, "Why do you think I would do that?" And now he's like, "Oh, now I see." He's like, "No, actually I get it."
oh,
Like,
it is
actually,
like, and then you think about, like, he's like, he thinks about it
yeah.
for a second of, like,
It was like, "No, actually, I
uh,
could do that."
yeah,
But it's also a crazy romantic line. It's also a really
yes,
lovely it will mean a more to them as characters when they are older and they
yeah,
understand their feelings a lot more. But I think in the moment, it's a very scary thing for both of them. I think
yeah.
Annabeth, again, credit to Leah's acting, reacts like she's like,
For
"Huh?"
so many emotions at once and is able to carry
Yeah,
it so
but it's
well.
also, like, she called it. Like,
Yeah,
she is the one who when he first said, "What do you think?" to her telling him about the prophecy, she's silent, and I think in this moment, she's like, yeah, again, a very
mhm,
fascinating things to explore in a Black girl. Finding value in
yeah.
an institution that does not love you. Ooh,
Ooh,
that's
yeah,
Ooh, clock.
oof.
That's upsetting. That's something a lot of us have done. Something
Oh my god, yeah.
being an overachieving Black girl who does well in school and finding value in
Perfectionism and,
school.
getting all A's and
Yeah,
the gifted children's program.
does not love you in institutions and, colleges, universities, schools that are founded on, most of them not even including Black people.
Yeah.
Crazy. Like, can't relate to that. Um, anyway, but I think there's a lot of, like, extrapolation to be drawn from
Mm,
that, but I think even in the moment in the show, she's saying, she sees it as, once again, him expressing his loyalty to her, but she
yeah,
also sees it as, like, oh, there is a a scary thing behind this that he is now scared by the way I am perhaps scared by it, and we'll have to figure that out. But she also wants to comfort him, and she wants to, like, reassure him, and I think that's very sweet, and I think it's, again, a sign of growth in her as a character that she tries to use the same, like, comforting voice, like, the kind of, like she tries to reassure him at several points through this episode the way he has reassured her when she
yeah.
panics. It just doesn't work 'cause it's
It doesn't it doesn't work because it's like
5 different ways. And she's
yeah,
like, "Oh," she's like, "I'm trying to help," and he's like he's grieving, he's upset, he's scared,
yeah,
and she does not have the tools yet in her emotional toolbox to, like, really reciprocate the way he's been able to do it to her.
Like, it
Um,
takes a bit for her to be able to really know how to calm him down
yeah,
as
absolutely.
opposite to him, yeah. But I
It'll
find it very very fun. I think especially now that the clip is being taken out of context everywhere, somebody posting that it made it rounds on Facebook,
Oh, yeah. And
which
it
is
was
like,
inevitable.
it wasn't edible, which is like,
I'm
I
happy
get
for
that,
people watching the show, but I think, yeah, this is a clip that's very easy to take out of context. This is a clip
incredibly
that
so.
yeah, absolutely, and I think it in some ways, I'm okay with that. I mean, not that it matters whether or not I'm okay with it,
Yeah.
but in some ways, I'm okay with that because I think there's a way that it can bring people into the show, but I think in the context of the show, it means something different from
Oh,
from
yeah,
what people will
100%.
assume, yeah, which is fine. I think, we'll see it way, but it's a powerful moment, it's an important moment. I think it's very much from the writers of Black Sails. There's a lot of in my mind as a Black Sails lover and enjoyer, in this scene.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about Black Sails. I'm committed to watching it after the season is over, after like, but it's just like, yeah, because I keep seeing people be like the parallels, and I'm like, I want in. I have FOMO.
I will not spoil
What?
it for you. I will not
Okay.
spoil it for you.
No, is that one thing about fandom that is a positive is the edits, and the edits that are going to hit the timeline come season 4, particular.
Crazy stuff, crazy stuff. But yeah. Oh, also, the other thing I wanted to mention for this,
Yeah.
and I'm sure you noted it too, is that this also foregrounds season 3 in a very specific way. And Annabeth
Yes.
thought, or Annabeth's what in the book is an off-screen decision for Annabeth to think about joining the Hunters and get information about
Yeah.
joining the Hunters. In the books, that's we don't know her logic. In the show, we are now being foregrounded the logic of if I'm with Percy is gonna be loyal to me enough to burn down Olympus. Maybe I should run away. Maybe I should avoid a detachment. You
Oh
know?
my god, and I'm thinking of that Percy on top of Dahlia's return. Yeah, I can see why she ordered that pamphlet. Like, somebody's like, "She ordered a pamphlet immediately."
Like, I gotta actually get
Like, the
I gotta get
2
out of this
people?
way because she's scared. She's a girl. She's just a girl.
She's just a
Dad
girl.
already has avoidant attachment issues, and he had just told
Yeah.
her that he values his relationship to her over the existence of the institution that, like, that has created the only life she knows. And she's like, "No." She's like,
No.
"Technically, I'm only taking."
I don't wanna actually do this.
Yeah, yeah,
Actually,
gotta roll. I gotta dip. And I think that's so valid of her because yes, that is scary. It is scary. I get her. I am an
I also
NFP
do.
and I'm like, I get her. It's scary to be like, people care about me so much that they would do anything for me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want that responsibility. I don't wanna like, don't tell me that.
Yeah.
But it's true, and I think again, a very powerful moment in the show, a very important moment in the show,
Mhm.
a very episode 5 moment at this point, like, the
Yeah.
precedent of groundbreaking episode 5 moments the show is establishing is crazy, but here we are.
Switching gears just a little bit, just to talk really quick about Clarice and Grover, because um we switch off in this episode between the two pairs, I would say, of this season. And somebody brought this up in my our last podcast episode of like, why do you think Clarice didn't end up at Circe's with them? Like, because she had they were on the same ship, but she ends up right at Polyphemus's island instead. I think if Clarice would have failed the siren test, and I think they just skipped ahead. um,
Let's not.
let's
Let's
not. Like,
I also I don't know, part of me is like, I think there's a way not only would she have failed the Sirens test,
oh, 100%.
absolutely, I also think the training program part of Circe's MLM would have hit the wrong part of her brain too,
Oh,
because this is my theory, based off nothing but vibes, but,
yeah.
like, I think well, based on what the show's established of her character at this point, right? Clarice is, again, very similar to Annabeth, Again, very interesting that these are both played by black girls, and the show is pulling this theme out of both of them.
Mm,
Clarice is very similar to Annabeth in that she's been taught a specific way to earn approval and to earn her
mm,
affection, to earn institutional approval, the institution being Camp Half-Blood, but also Olympus. She's been taught that it's like a regimen. Like this fight, earn your way, prove yourself, earn glory, but so the part of Circe's program that's like it's a training program, like blah blah blah. Even
oh
though it's
my
introspective
god,
and training
yeah.
program, I feel like Clarice would have been like, "You know what? Maybe I do need another
I'm
program."
gonna excel at this.
Yes, like, I feel
Oh,
like
yeah.
she did it a different way, especially coming off the "she just failed her men" thing.
Yeah,
Like, I think there's very much a part of her that would have been, like a large part of her that would have been like, "I have just had this massive failure, I need to look within and
yeah,
reevaluate and do a program." And again, that's why
yeah.
MLMs, the life coaching and all
Work.
so alluring. Because yes, it hits on she Clarice does need that moment of introspection, but she's not
Not there.
obviously
No.
not the girl to give it to her.
No.
But yeah, so I think the show was like, "Yeah, we're not gonna do this." But Clarice and Grover is such an interesting
Oh,
I think
yeah.
it was the correct choice for a lot of reasons. I think Clarice and Grover is such a fun, interesting pairing because I think again, credit to Arian's performance, who has done such a very fascinating and very
Changed
nuanced,
Grover for the good so
l
well.
such a small not small, but, like, such a, fine choice to, like fine-tuned choice of making Grover have this kind of, like, not quite paternal, but, like, older brother energy towards all
Mhm.
the demigods, and starting from the beginning of the season with Allison Sims, where he's like, "Hey, girl," but,
Yeah.
like, "You were a camper and I was your camp counselor" vibe. It's a very interesting energy that Arian is bringing to how he interacts with demigods, and I think he does the same thing with Clarice, where Clarice is coming off of this massive loss. She just got trapped by Polyphemus. She gets, trapped in the cave. She wakes up, she's ready to attack, and Grover immediately goes into, like, big brother mode where he's like,
Yeah.
"Relax, like, what are you doing? Like, let's
Let's
talk."
work it out in a remix.
Yeah,
Let's
exactly, like,
yeah.
it's a very it's the same energy he has with Annabeth and Percy, but, like,
Mm.
without the emotional attachment, but still with the, like, nurturing, kinda like Big Brother again, like, Big Brother, camp counselor are words I'm using for them, maybe aren't precisely right, but, like, it's a very nuanced choice, and I think it's a very interesting choice, again, knowing what we know about Grover's agelessness in certain ways.
Yeah.
He, like, is playing it that he's like, Clarice he can clearly see Clarice needs help, like,
Yeah.
help and also help, and he's like, "Let's talk.
Calm down. Yeah.
Calm down, let's talk, let's figure this out." Um, and they work it out as enough that Clarice executes what Grover's plan is, which is she starts trying to climb the rope,
Yeah.
calls the tree to pull the thing. I did a little bit this is something I will say here in this space, I
Yeah.
did a little bit cringe at the line where I think it was he was like, um, "She's a Cuban oak, so she's tough."
Okay, I was gonna ask what you thought
I
about
was
that. I
like,
was like,
"Actually, we don't need to do that." I was like, and here is the moment with as much care as you can have in a writer's room. Again, how well Annabeth and Clarice's characters work, and I'm
yeah.
like, "Guys, let's think
Let's
intersectionally."
I
Here
went,
is the
"Oh, that's, like, the first time in the show." I was like, "Okay, so did we not double check that to double
and
no?"
I did think that line was a little bit
Oh, weird.
not
Yeah.
needed. It wouldn't have meant anything either way. It did make me cringe a little bit, but again, like the overall point of that moment is
Yeah.
that Grover has this connection to the trees, and that his pan pipe has this power that to actually like kind of call nature to his will, which is obviously an important thing in the books. So, the plan almost works, and then, it snaps, and then Clarice falls and gets knocked unconscious, and he kicks her under the thing. And then we get this moment of, like, Polyphemus
Oh
is
my
gonna
god,
be
yeah.
smart. He recognizes Grover, and then,
Yeah.
again, sets up that moment at the end of the episode where Polyphemus is, apparently smarter than we think he is. Maybe from what I remember how he was in the books, and that's gonna be crazy for next episode.
Yeah, I Polyphemus being smart was really funny. I was like, "Oh.
I was like, "Oh,
Oh.
shocking."
Oh, this is not" This is not g I was like, I guess
First
this
up.
tracks, but, like, when you
But,
really
like,
think about it,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Like, it means again, it meant something to it was one of the other changes that kinda threw me, especially,
Yeah.
was towards the end of the episode. But it was also a change that makes sense with what the show is trying to do thematically, which, like, Tyson is a monster, Tyson is a cyclops, Tyson is smarter than everyone gives him credit for. It makes sense that they would be like, "We need to also make the other prominent cyclops character in this season."
Oh my god, Annabeth's gonna have PTSD flashbacks next episode because we see how he manipulated his voice to
Yes,
sound like Percy.
yes.
And going back to if I have to say between you or Grover, and I'm like, "Oh, no." I'm connecting dots are connecting, and it's not
That's working.
looking
Uh-huh.
good
No, it's gonna be
for
really good.
any.
And I think the show has made the correct choice of not making Annabeth specifically triggered by Cyclopses in that
Mm,
way. But I do think even without that sort of initial prejudice that the book sort of deals with, I think it'll still be a very scary thing
yeah.
in a lot of ways for all of these characters to deal with this power. And it's yeah, I'm very nervous because yes, we get like you said, we get exactly that foreground of him making himself sound like Grover, I mean. And that was very scary because I for a second was like, now what's going on? I
Yeah,
was
as soon as it was like, Aries gonna be merciful,
yeah,
I clocked
that's
the
what
same
everyone
thing as
I
Clarice.
will say, I think that's the line that everyone is saying that's how they clocked it. For me, it was slightly after that, around that line, but not specifically that line, where I was like, "If Grover's tied up in that closet, how is he so clear?" Like, I was like, "Now wait a second."
This sound
I
design
was
is
like, I didn't
incredible.
even hear the line. I mean, I saw Clarice's reaction to the line so much as I was like, "Now wait, how is he sounding so crisp? Wait, it's a trick!" Because I saw Clarice's face reaction, and
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh." But yeah, no, I totally makes sense that everyone understood that that was the line that Clarice in the moment clocks. I was not that smart. I was just like, "Now wait a second." So, anyway, but yeah, very freaky, very freaky.
Really quick before we get into the other big plot twist of this episode, being the siren scene, we gotta talk about guinea pig Percy. I
We
mean,
have to.
we
The
have to talk
icon of
about
this episode, the vanilla
apparently vanilla. I think it's vanilla mocha. I think there's like two names for the guinea pig.
oh, I
Apparently,
didn't
it has
even
a first and a
hear it.
last name.
Oh my god, period. What an icon. What a star. What a performance.
What if first Percy telling Circe everything that he knows about? It's such a Percy
Bless his
move,
heart.
but also,
Bless his
why would you do that?
No, but he did the same thing in season 1. I think, again, they've established it as his like you said, his character, but it is
Yeah.
such a, like, "Bro, what are we doing?
It's
What are we
like, "Stop
doing?" But he's a kid,
talking,
and I think,
bro."
again, this unfortunately does foreground Calypso. I think this, more than anything, told me that they're gonna keep certain aspects of
Yeah,
Calypso's character. Again, whether we see the romantic aspect of it or not, I don't know, but at least they're gonna keep this part of it, which is Percy being like, "I understand it's hard for people to leave you." And Circe responds to that, and you see Circe respond to that. But also the thing with Circe versus Calypso is Circe's a grown woman. She's like, she thinks you can see she recognizes Percy's empathy in this moment, but she is
yeah,
already scheming. Like, she is from the
yeah.
minute he starts talking, she's the
Especially since he's probably gonna use it as some sort of way to help the person you went on this island with, Annabeth.
yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, no, it's an interesting moment. It's a lovely moment in the sense of Percy being this very kind character, but it's a
Yeah.
very, like, palm head moment where I'm
Yeah,
like,
like
"Bro, you've blown your advantage of figuring it out by immediately telling her." But it has to happen because she has to
yeah,
have a reason to turn him into a guinea pig.
yeah.
Happens in the books, and then she does, and it's very cute. And I did love her line of being like, "Now this is a setback for me." Like, she's holding him and she's like, "Now this is a setback for me and I'm not proud of it. But if everyone sees Annabeth leave with so much as like a one course in the program, I'm gonna lose a bunch of demigods." And she's like, "And I'm just trying to help people." And that goes back to her thinking her fatal flaw is I still wonder, the actress played it so well. I wonder if she was playing it straight or if she's thinks she's lying to them in that moment when she says earlier
Hmm.
her fatal flaw is empathy. because I can see a world in which Circe actually thinks that.
Yeah, that she believes that, which I think is a
Yeah,
lot the case for a lot of people who kinda lead ML it's a scam, but they
mhm,
also think that, they're doing good in some
absolutely.
sort of way. It's
Yeah.
just, like, sacrificial good in those
The other
lines.
people are
Yeah.
choosing
Yeah,
sacrifice.
for the other people, yeah.
It's sacrificial good,
For
but
everybody else.
sacrifices. It's the Farquaad. Some of you may die.
Yeah.
Sacrifice I am willing to make. You
It's
know?
something that I am willing to make, some of
Yes,
you may
exactly,
not make it
exactly.
here.
But yeah, no, Percy, and then we get the little captions. So I thought that was very cute. That's this little Easter egg that they get to include from the books
Mm,
of Edward, the guinea pig, who is reigning over the guinea pig enclosure, being like, "Welcome, Percy. You're gonna be here forever." And you hear the faint strains of again another Black Sails Easter egg. I don't
yeah.
think it's quite the Black Sails theme, but it's something very close to the Black Sails theme. You start hearing in that moment, which I think is the kind of Easter egg you can include when you get Bear McCreary, who was the person who
Yeah.
did the Black Sails theme, to do the music for the show. I think it was a really fun cute moment because I was like, "Aha! I know what's happening here." I was like, "It's pirates. It's Blackbeard." And it's a really I just think that's cute. And again, you get that Easter egg too if you read the book, but it's an even more fun Easter egg, I think, for Black Sails fans.
Yeah, I found the whole guinea pigs really funny, and I was like, because I knew they were gonna do it, I was wondering how or if they're going to be able to, in some way, have the guinea pigs talk to each other.
Mhm.
I mean, I wasn't expecting Stuart Little levels of
Oh, no,
yeah, that would
that
be
would
weird.
yeah. I wouldn't have wanted that. No, that's weird. But I
Yeah,
think
but
that'll
this was
work.
the best way to do that. Vanilla, mocha vanilla, come get your baddie chain, as I said in my
I wanna see you booked and busy for the next time.
Big books and
Whatever
busy.
roles there all are in Hollywood, give it to this I thought
Give to
I think it was in, the podcast episode,
yeah,
post-show podcast with Arian, where they said that, the guinea pig who plays Edward and the guinea pig who plays Percy, were, like, divas and were constantly fighting, and so they had to be on those 2 different levels, which even if I didn't know that fact, I think them being on 2 different levels made sense because
it
it
made
was
sense, yeah.
yeah, Edward is the reigning so he is the higher position in the guinea pig enclosure, and so him being on the little thing while Percy comes in as the newbie
Yeah.
made sense, and so even if I didn't know that made sense, knowing this fun fact about the two guinea pigs is so great. I was
That's
like, "That's
so funny, like,
separating the
imagine
divas,"
you
and that's
can't
the
work
whole
with
movie.
everybody.
Annabeth comes back, and
Yeah.
Annabeth sees the guinea pigs, and he kinda is like, "Hmm," and then she starts to showing her plans.
Yeah.
Again, well, first we get that line, I think I said it earlier too, where she's like, "I already know my fatal flaw. Chiron already gave me it was on my first
The
progress report."
progress reports
Yeah,
at Camp
at Camp
Half-Blood, it's
Half-Blood,
crazy.
and I was like, "Oh, what an interesting thing to introduce into the lore here, the progress report," because I was like, "Ooh," it makes the evaluation part of this whole thing more
Mm,
interesting that Annabeth is constantly now canonically been performing 2 evaluations, like, like,
yeah.
that is how she's received affirmation, is like, "This is your fatal flaw, but these are your strengths," and so that's a very crazy, interesting thing to introduce into the lore and makes sense
Yeah.
for Annabeth's character, where she's like, "I was proud of my first report card that said my flaw was pride because I'm so good that that's what" I was like, "Girl," I was
No,
like
it's funny because because I asked this question before of, like, for the year-rounders, is Camp Half-Blood an accredited school? Like which I feel like no, but now we're getting progress reports. I'm like,
I think the show might make choices one way or the other on that. I think it's an interesting point. I think besides the actual haha of like, is this accredited? Which I don't think it is. I feel like this may be proven wrong, but I feel like the show is kind of going in a direction where we might get um some kind of explanation in season 3 specifically for reasons we don't know
mm,
about how the opening of season 3 starts of what school means for like,
yeah,
so we'll see, but again, makes sense for Annabeth's character. Because immediately then she shows all her like, she's drawn out these, like, pulleys,
yeah,
crazy thing. I'm like, "Girl, when did you have time to do this?" But
yeah, what she
far be it from me to underestimate. my girl, the smartest demigod alive, you
She
know?
had time to do that and deconstruct her hair. Like, that's
Yeah, yeah.
crazy work.
Took apart her hair while taking apart her braids. I wanna envision her getting her braids, like, being like, "Hey, I need to change," like, going into whatever spa room
Yeah.
and being like, maybe talking to Zadie and being like, "Hey, I wanna change back into my clothes because 'cause I'm ready to head out," and it's getting somebody to take down her hair as she's drawing it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what
Yeah.
I'm picturing. I was like, "That's so fun," but I love it. And she looks to the side, she sees the
She's
little his little tornado, and I was like, "Now, this is such a funny choice for the show." I was like, "Here's the thing, okay? I understand that the show is taking a much slower pace with Percy's powers than
Yeah,
books. The books have him kind of overpowered. They have him be kind of a Mary Sue from Jump, like,
basically, yeah.
all of his emotions explode the world, you know, not literally, but like from a very early stage in the series. I think the show has overall pretty much made it clear that they're going to set a slower pace.
Yeah.
So I understand the like when his emotions were stirred up with the mirror, you have him explode the little glass with the tornado starting and then it explodes, right? I was like, okay, sure, like that's by the pace they've set, for the most part, that makes sense to be like a minor example of Percy's like
Power, yeah.
power, right? Which we've only really fully seen come out in a few key moments in its full, like, or in a bigger sense.
Yeah.
Him only being able to summon this little tiny, like, tornado as a guinea pig, like, not even for 2 seconds. You can see the guinea pig drink from the water, and then it's this little tiny and Annabeth's still clocking it is real that was so I was like, "Oh my god." I was
That's
like, it makes sense in the show. I think it's a funny choice because,
yeah.
like
They said he was so loud in there because, like, as soon as she walked in, all you hear is him screaming.
yes, he's like
And you're like, "Oh, the guinea pigs are
yelling at the
very"
bars in his enclosure.
If he could do this, he would.
No,
Please,
that's exactly what was
please.
happening. But they're all, like, screeching. So, again,
Yeah.
in the background, you hear all that happen. We know to focus on Percy, but, like,
Yeah.
Annabeth in the show isn't gonna clock it, but I think it made sense for Percy only to be able to do a small minor water thing. So, yeah. No, but it works. Annabeth sees it,
Yeah.
and she's like but, again, I think it was a good and smart,
Yeah.
thing on the prop aspect of it, that it's not just that, it's also Annabeth sees capped Riptide
Capped.
in her
Yeah.
little pen
As
and
soon as
Annabeth's
she
like
sees Riptide, she's like, "Oh, okay, now I'm
she's like,
realizing what's
"Actually, my
going on."
boyfriend would not have given you his sword in any universe." Um,
And no at all.
and
'Cause in
no
the
world,
books, yeah.
that really lovely line about Annabeth being like, you know,
Yeah.
I want my mom to be proud of me. Percy, I didn't know, but I didn't know any differently until I met Percy, whose mom is always proud of
Yeah.
him, and like, his mom loves him, and I wonder what that would be like, and she's obviously trying to distract Circe from what she's doing,
Yeah.
but it's also we can assume it's an honest line because of what happens later, obviously.
Mhm.
She's being honest when she says, like,
Yeah.
she really that is the thing she is more afraid of than death, is her failing her mother.
Percy
Yeah,
and failing up
and failing
mothers,
yeah,
yeah.
and, like, yeah, and then failing her friends. She's like failure in general.
Failure, I get you, Annabeth, so bad.
And like, Annabeth, like, "Girl, unfortunately, I am seen, I am understood." It's the same.
I get you so
You
bad. I think before the
failure.
guinea pig, we have to give a shout out to Mochi, the guinea pig
It's
that
so
I crocheted.
so cute. I also have to say I wore my dagger earrings for
Uh,
this recording, and I'm
I love it.
also wearing, what I thought was hopefully very island vibes in this.
No, I love it. I love
So
it.
I was trying to be on theme.
Go into it, the siren scene. Like we made it. They escape and they head to the sirens. Before we get into like the meaning of it all, I do think it was funny seeing I saw this on my timeline this morning, somebody being like, "You think they have the siren scene live streamed for Olympus
Yes, I saw
TV?" And I
Yeah.
was like, "Oh my god!" Like, probably.
Is Olympus watching constantly? I don't think the show is telling us that, but I think alive
Yeah.
that they could maybe tune in and out of,
That's what I was
or
thinking,
like
like, it was
yeah,
like it's like
zoom in and
TV
out of.
channels,
Yeah,
like
like you're bored, let me turn on the TV, you
yeah,
know?
like streaming
As opposed to like
services.
it's not constantly running, like they don't always
No.
know. Yeah, like I
But
think
I
that's it's
yeah.
it's an interesting like thought exercise of like what do we think the gods know and when do they know it?
I do think they probably did get a red alert that Percy and Annabeth were heading to the Sirens, because I do think that's like a dangerous, like, the favorite children of Poseidon and Athena, the prophecy child, is heading towards another dangerous situation.
Yeah, I think for
Uh,
Percy's sake, I again, I love Annabeth, and I think we will see even more of how Annabeth is so important to the story as we go
yeah.
on.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't
100%.
unfortunately, even Annabeth being Athena's favorite child, I don't know if Athena knows or
I
cares.
don't think she saw, well, we'll get into
But
that, but
I
I don't
don't
know if
know,
she
but
even.
but I think you're right in that Percy's role in the story now is we've established important enough that he may be the one everyone's clocking in for, like, "Ooh,
Yeah,
a
that
moment."
would be a red alert
Yeah,
for
red alert, red
Olympus.
alert. Yeah,
No, but I think
I
if
feel
somebody was
yeah.
like, Percy's there, and I
But
think
yeah,
Annabeth is also there.
the equivalent, you know what is the equivalent of? Is like when you're watching something on TV and your parent walks by and or like it's like slightly interesting and then they're like they
Like,
kind of double back and they're standing in front of the TV and then they and you're like, "Oh, you can sit down and watch it." And they're like, "No, no,
no,
no."
no, 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 no.
Yeah, just yeah, exactly. That's what I'm
That's
picturing. It's
yeah,
someone
everybody's
TV
watching in
on
Olympus, and she's like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Yo, that Poseidon kid
is with your girl, and she's
is
like,
with."
"No."
It's like, "Oh, it's your daughter actually out there
Yeah,
right now."
yeah,
They're like,
yeah.
"What?"
I think that's
Or
funny
through
and
the
that's
grapevine after.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah,
What did I?
yeah, so
Aphrodite, on the other hand,
I
this
think
is her Super
Aphrodite
Bowl.
yes, I think well, I think if anything, I think this is she's now tuned in.
Oh,
Because the
yeah.
tunnel of love part of it, I think in the books is the first time that Aphrodite
Yeah.
yeah, but I
She
personally
made was aware of them at that
yeah,
point.
I personally think the show is leaning towards if and when you know, when we see Aphrodite, if she cites having watched them, we don't
Yeah.
know if that'll be part of the dialogue the way it is in the books, but I think it'll be this more than Tunnel of Love.
I
I
saw
think
that
this like
siren scene
she
last
was
year.
like,
That's
"I was
crazy.
clicking through channels, I was channel surfing, and I heard a rumor, you know, y'all were, you know, risking sacrificing our lives for each other in this very specific test
Yeah.
of your fatal flaws, and it made me I'm interested. Tell me more. What's going on over here?"
Talk the siren scene, and because that was one of the biggest
Can we start
changes.
with they're freaky? They're freaky as anything. The whole costuming,
Oh
the
my god.
rock them being part of the rocks, freaky as anything. I was like, "Oh, this is where we're going," which, like, I love, but also, like, a little bit haunting my nightmares, like, crazy.
I when they released their first looks of those sirens, I think I was like, a jump scare would have been nice, because what
Jump scare warning.
those are gonna be my new sleep paralysis demons. Like, I'm gonna look up
Scary.
and it's gonna be one of those sirens.
Scary. And even when they were doing some of the behind the scenes stuff they've already released for Demigod
Yeah,
Diaries and everything, and then I think some of the influencers who got to visit set,
yeah.
which I thought was really funny when you were like, "Bezi, do you have something to tell me?" I was like, "I wish you would."
First, we gotta talk about the initial setup to us seeing Athena's. I will say, Circe taking back the beeswax was
Crazy.
hilarious. Crazy
Crazy.
work.
That was insane. Cause I was like, I again, this is why I really appreciate the changes that the show has made.
Yeah,
Because when by the time they sail off, I'm like, how exactly are they going to do this scene? Like
yeah.
we've seen so much already have changed at that point in the episode where I was like, okay, what's happening? Like how are we gonna do this?
Because
And
Percy's tied up, so I was like, "How did he get himself into this
yeah,
situation?"
like what I was like, what are we doing? And I'm like, I'm listening, I'm like, what's gonna happen? But I was not, like you said, expecting the through the sky. I was
I was like, "That's so rude."
no, she did it at the most dramatic moment to do it. She didn't even do it when they were because they took them time. I'm sure we're not seeing it on screen. Escape from the spa, get on the boat, get the boat ready to go, sail away. All of that time, she could have snatched it with the same magic she did. But she didn't. She waited until they sailed just close enough to the Sirens, and then she was like, it's mine.
Because you thought that was like the third trick of the whole episode, because you thought the thing was going to be, oh, there's only enough left for one of us. Which one of us
Right,
is
which
going to
is
have it?
yes, yes.
None of us. We're both doing it.
Is none of us. And then yes, and then once again we see what we know to be true about both their characters, with Annabeth being like, "No, I can do it," and Percy being like, "How dare you not let me sacrifice myself for you?" He is literally foaming at the mouth, screaming,
And
crying.
that's when you're like, yeah, he needed to be tied up.
How dare you not let me sacrifice myself for you again? So we arrive at the same place we arrive in the
Yeah.
books, but we arrive at it in a
Different way.
whole different way, which is very, again, but when on my second rewatch, I was able to appreciate the artistry of that. Like, we did get to the same place we needed to get to. Like, we got to
Yeah.
a lot of things sort of tweaked enough that by the time you got to this moment, it's earned in a different way. So yes, we have Annabeth being like, I want to listen, I want to know, I can figure it out.
Which makes her, knowing the whole context of it, makes her initial siren scene just like even more interesting, that it's it's set up and we see Luke, Grover, and Percy
Well, first
in.
they're the Ogali, which is very
Oh my god! Oh, I was like, "There's no way Grover's in it." Like, you start to, because you're like,
Ogali.
"What is gonna be her scene?" Because it's very different in the books. It's an imagination of her parents and Luke in the books. So I figured Luke may still be in it in some way.
Here's once again in the episode, I was like, oh, interesting, because
Yeah,
it's such a dramatic change. It becomes I think a further undercut, like a further underscoring of her pride, because in the books it's her, like you said, vision of everybody happy on a
yeah,
picnic and the redesigned Olympus.
of Olympus. Yeah,
This is again, love the fandom, because the fandom, like the tweets that I was seeing after the show helped me a little bit be able to articulate this a little better, although I agree with it and felt it. Is that I think that sort of peaceful, idyllic vision isn't necessarily a pride. Like, it is in the set in a sort of, I guess, maybe a systemic sense, like in a like
hmm
Annabeth thinks she can do it better. But I think what the show is calling pride is actually an understanding, and drawing the through line of pride is actually a little more specific and individualized, where it's not that she believes that she's smarter than everyone else. It's that she believes that she
can solve everything.
can help, like
Yeah,
can figure it out. Like, it's not a superiority thing, pride. It's a pride as in she thinks that she has, over time, or part of her DNA, because of her Athena DNA, has the inherent ability to solve problems.
yeah,
And I think that is the tricky thing about why this pride is so insidious, because it's operating on two different levels. The next one we'll talk about in the next part of this, but this
yeah,
level being the like the scenario the Sirens are presenting her with is that Grover is saying, here is an opportunity to solve the war. We
yeah,
could use some, like, his line is like, we could use some wisdom right now. The first surface layer of Annabeth's pride. I think the show did a good job of getting us to this point, of setting up the building blocks that need us to get us here, to almost
yeah,
apply that as the Sirens trick, because we have established that Annabeth thinks that her goal is to solve the chasm that is forming between Luke and Camp Half-Blood and the upcoming war. I think this vision, this initial vision, is like the solving. You get to be doing the solving. Like, you get to solve it right now in this moment.
hmm
Um, so I think it makes sense. It was a change that startled me, but not, I was like, upon further reflection, I was
yeah.
like,
When
I
you
get
watch it again, you're like, okay, yeah, that
I
makes
see where we're
sense.
going. But again, we think she fit, and in the moment
I was like, oh my god, she did it.
we we did it, you know, Dora, you know, we did it. Because Athena comes, Avengers Ending superhero entrance, you know, through the Siren's head with her spear, and pops up onto the scene. And listen, we knew we had that preview image. I know we all saw it of
Yeah.
with her with the announcement of Andre Day's
Of
casting.
yeah.
Athena in that jumpsuit. Even when I saw that, what are
I
we doing?
did. As soon as I saw her in the jumpsuit, I said, "Oh, this is an illusion."
So we've established the gods can wear nonsense clothing, but
Yeah.
like jumpsuit, I fear is such. I'm almost glad we know what we know about that. This Athena not being Athena, because I was like, I need to see Athena in actual. Come on, come on.
Yeah. I think it's really funny because I was looking back on I did a YouTube video on, like, my predictions for season 2, and everybody kept asking me about Athena, and I was like, "I'm gonna be so honest, I'm not gonna comment on the costuming because I have a theory." And I'm very glad I was correct on that theory.
So Athena coming in with the spear and completely spearing the thing, and we're like, yes, Athena,
Yeah. Girl
Avengers entrance.
boss.
Others coming in, and the absolutely heartbreaking level of excitement on Leah's face as Annabeth in that moment, and
Because she's
like the
like,
realization as it dawns on her as she sees her, and she's like, "Oh my god," and she's like, "You were watching," and Athena's like, "I was always watching," and this is where I come back to what I was saying earlier about like there is a kind of comfort that comes from this idea that the divine
yeah,
uh, omniscience is always watching you and is always looking out for you. There is something so inherently comforting about that, and it's why it's so prevalent in, you know, like in Western Christian, like
yeah,
there's a kind of safety in that. Um, and so I, in that moment, 1,000,000,000% understood why that is exactly what Annabeth wanted to hear, because it means that your work is not in vain. It means not only approval but also like recognition.
yeah,
And that for someone who is overachieving, someone who is overthinking, for someone who is trying to make people proud as a sign of confirmation that you're doing the right thing. This is the insecurity at the heart of it all.
mm,
This is the thing. This is the pride that is so much more insidious and so much harder to see in yourself and really come to terms with, because it just kind of keeps popping up again.
yeah.
Not that I can relate to it at all, but,
No, it's
like,
like not that I
yeah,
can. I Melanated Wise Girl. What is that even name?
what
What
is
is the
that
being?
even?
I
But, like, I had this realization of this plot twist sooner than I had the realization for the other 2 plot twists in this
mm-hmm,
episode, because I knew. I knew. This was so much exactly what I would have wanted to hear as Annabeth that I was like, "Oh."
yeah.
I was like, "Oh."
When she started saying all the right things, I was like,
I was like,
Athena.
because there's so many people and I understood why, like, everyone's reaction is like, "Oh my god, they got me," and I was like, the only reason it didn't get me is because this was too good. That was exactly what she, Annabeth, and me, if I was Annabeth,
Yeah,
needed to hear, was I was always watching. Is that's I was like, and that's such, we know and suspect that that is a lie.
here comes Percy.
Here comes
uh,
Percy, which again, by virtue of logistics production mechanisms, right?
yes,
Behind the scenes of it all, we don't see how Percy gets free from the knots. We can assume that maybe when Annabeth was tying him and he was like, that's tight enough, maybe it wasn't the most tight it could have been. And
yeah.
or we Riptide was involved, like
That's why I
that
was like, I'm assuming he was able to
some
get riptide.
combination of these things, I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
we can only assume, we can assume. Because the rope is intact is the only thing. So like
Oh,
if
yeah. So
he
he didn't.
like if he
Yeah.
couldn't have cut it fully because the rope wouldn't have been able to pull them back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's my thought. That's my only thought. Um, but yeah, but we get that Percy grabbing her, and like we know from the Demigod Diaries that they just released that like it is actually Walker grabbing her, which I thought was
Yeah.
really, they really could have had
Yeah.
that. stunt double, but they were like, "No."
I find it really interesting that they decided to have them both do that because I was like, I for sure was like, oh, they're gonna have their stunt doubles fill in.
Of
Like these are
course, yeah,
minors.
it's kind of a it's not a obviously the most dangerous thing they've done, but it's kind of
Yeah.
like the pullback is hard enough that I would have understood that they were like, "Maybe
And
let's
into
not."
the water, but how they were
Yeah,
talking about it, I was like, oh, they both did this. That's crazy.
that's crazy, but good for them.
Yeah.
We do not get the much anticipated, underwater bubble,
Which I
which
kind of figured.
you know, and I exactly, but I also was like, it is interesting, someone noted it, I don't disagree, that there are bubbles in the credits, like,
Mhm.
the sort of floating bubbles in the credits, and so people were like, "Maybe it'll appear later, like Rainbow," and I was like, "I don't know, I don't know, I am
I'm
ambivalent
trying
on
to
it."
think of how that would even happen
No,
at this point,
I have no idea.
other than
Someone
season
brought it up,
5.
and I was like, "That's interesting, but we'll see."
I think for me personally, when it comes to Percy Jackson particularly, I think it was an adaptation that always was gonna have to be developed and changed because there's so much like, as much as openness, especially within the last few years that Rick Riordan has been with, like, his publishing and his stuff like that, like, it's still a 2000s book, so there's a lot of, like, things within the book that just even if they didn't, make Annabeth Black or they didn't do to modernize it, right? That, like, are questionable, like, even just, like, misogyny-wise or, like, things like that, but it's, like, again, the culture of the 2000s, like, I'm not gonna fault it for that. Or just forgetting the gender of a Pegasus, but, like,
Trans icon Black Cat Jack.
Chance Icon Blackjack.
I totally agree. I
Yeah.
think I think in general the best way to go into most fantasy adaptations, and like I said earlier, is like I enjoy an adaptation that makes changes as long
Yeah.
as the cohesion is there, like the internal
Yeah.
cohesion is there. Like they know why they're making the changes they want to make. And it's clear whether or not for the most part, we agree with it or not, and I think for the most part, I do.
Yeah.
Uh, I think the show has made it clear that they are clear why they make the changes they do and don't. Like, it's been very clear that there's a lot of intentionality, and it's not just, like, vibes on their end, which is great.
No.
Like, I wanna be vibes as a fan, but you running the
You
show,
gotta
so
know the story
you
and
gotta know what you're doing. So, yeah,
yeah.
so I think they're doing a good job with it. I think the changes to Siren Scene made sense. I wasn't too bothered about the no underwater bubble scene, but we do get the scene at when they're back on the boat and Annabeth is in her little blanket and
Giving Selena Gomez in the blanket realness. That was my first thought. I think my thoughts are often just meme photos.
Oh,
That's literally
absolutely.
yeah. I was
I
like, "Oh,
get it.
this"
I get it. I so get that. But yeah, and Percy comes over and
Mhm.
someone made a really good observation that I saw a little bit before we recorded this. Walker is doing a good job in all of his moments in this episode, but particularly at this end moment of playing even in this moment where he's like gives Annabeth a moment, like he's like, let's debrief.
Yeah.
He is not as open as he normally is, but he's trying to still give her that space to be vulnerable and to admit, like, or to talk about what just happened. But
Yeah.
he's grieving, still grieving himself. Like the weight of everything is setting in, and Walker is kind of
Yeah.
silently conveying that. Percy's energy is smaller, if that makes sense, and I was like and I agree with that, and that I think is a really again, we know Percy is like, he's such a good character. He's a kind character, and I think that's another example of that kindness. Like, when you are emotionally shutting down and you are, like, overwhelmed and stressed to still be try and comfort somebody else is, really emotionally, thoughtful, mature thing to do,
Yeah.
and good for him. Anyway,
Yeah.
like,
As again, Sally Jackson's son,
Sally Jackson
um,
exactly. Sally that's very Sally Jackson.
Jackson's son. But also, like you said, it's also within the dialogue too. A lot of
Yeah,
it's should be focused on Annabeth, but I think in past episodes he related back to himself, but this is kind of the first time we've seen him just go, yeah, that's fine. Yeah, like it's still being reassuring, but not relating to it in a way or not being like, "These are also my feelings on it," right? Like, it's kinda one of the first times we see him kinda hold back on that more so and while allowing Annabeth to process all of the things that she has to process,
Yeah.
um, and on her end, I think this conversation's really interesting because, like, it's the first time she's really I don't know if she's told anybody what she's telling Percy.
Yeah, I don't think at all. I don't think so. I
No.
really don't. Yeah, I also think this is the first time she and us, the audience, are being explicitly told out loud that she realizes that what the Sirens got her with is her pride in a way that she was too proud to realize, like,
Yeah.
that they could get her. Um, because she knew she wanted her mother to be proud of her, and she knew her fatal flaw was pride. But, again, she's a child, and she didn't
Yeah,
realize
she's
the
13.
relationship between these 2 things is like, yes, it's the pride, but it's the insecurity. It's
Mm,
the fear of failure and the need for approval. And the pride is not pride superior, like I said, it's not pride superiority, it's pride, um love is being proud of me, and I need that is what I need, and if I
yeah.
don't do that, I am nothing. Like, that I need and I think that is the part of it that this is the first time perhaps that she is making that connection, and that we, the audience, are encouraged to make that connection with her, that, she did not realize how much she expected or still at her heart of hearts expected and needed Athena to, um, love her
Mm,
by being proud of her, like, and I think
yeah.
it's not just a, like, "Oh, I want her to pat me on the head." It's I need a mother's love, and my mother's love is being proud of me, and she is not proud of me, and I don't know why. And it's a heartbreaking thing. It's a really heartbreaking thing.
And then adding that layer of she feels that she can't be human, that she only can be a demigod, and
Yes.
then her demigod side feels like it's ignoring her. It's like, I can understand why that's, like, for
She
her
got
just
nothing.
she's
All
got
the
nothing.
rugs are being pulled out from under her. She's got nothing. Like, what is she standing on if all of these things are being pulled out from under her?
Yeah.
It sucks, and I think she knew it, but she didn't know it until this moment. Like, it's why so much of her actions, through this, um, show and up till this point are motivated explicitly by fear. There's a lot of fear in Annabeth, and I think there's a lot of fear in people who, when you are an overachiever, you're not the people who are overachievers, who are smug and superior, are the rare and minority, and they're the most annoying form of forms
Yeah,
of
they're the loudest.
yeah, exactly, they're the loudest, but the more numerous of us are the people who are overachievers from
Mhm.
fear, from insecurity, from a deep-seated, like, instability in how we belong in the world. And
Yeah.
I that that's exactly what Annabeth is. Like, she's operating from a place of fear because she fears what her world will look like if she does not perform, and what will fall apart. And things are fall the problem is, if the
Things
world is
are gonna fall apart anyway.
it seems like it's my fault, and I'm like, "It's not your fault. You are a child."
Everybody thinks it's their fault, and I think that's the bigger the moral of the story is I feel like everybody Annabeth particularly thinks everything is her fault. She probably thinks the whole
Yes,
boat situation's her fault. Percy thinks the whole boat situation is
yes,
his
yes,
fault. So it's just like, at
yes,
the end of the day, no, it's the fact that the gods make you keep doing this
yes.
stuff. And
Yeah,
Luke.
the people
But,
who
like
don't think the thing is their fault are the dangerous people.
yeah.
And that's, again, also a theme of the show, is that, like, almost all the antagonists they've encountered so far, um, rightfully or wrongfully, but mostly, or kind of a blurred line between, believe that the things that happen to them are not their fault.
Yeah.
And whereas all of the protagonists of the show so far, and honestly, Luke straddles that line, as we know, for many
Which
reasons, but
yeah.
particularly for that. He is one of the, like, he kind of both does and doesn't believe the things are his fault. But,
Mm.
like, all the protagonists believe everything is their fault, and all the antagonists are like, "This is everybody else's problem but me. I'm great." You know? It's like, "Okay, but are
Ugh.
you?" Yeah, it's like the Aries, it's, what's Echidna, it's like all of them start with, like, a little bit of empathy, but it's mostly the, like Aries is like, "Everyone's trying to keep me down." Echidna is like,
Yeah.
the "I'm not my children are not appreciated," like and it's very, like, you're like, "Oh, okay, you think you're great. You think you're wonderful, and everybody else is the problem.
Which
Huh."
makes just going because I keep thinking one big theme that people keep going back to, especially since we know we're getting season 3. I mean, it seems like we're getting it this year at the end of the
Yeah,
year, is that like we're gonna get all this stuff combined at the end of season 3 with all the
mhm,
gods being because I think they're doing that. They confirmed they're doing the scene with all the council of the gods.
yeah.
So it's gonna be very interesting to see kind of their minds. Also, just in general, just thinking of everybody they have cast so far,
In a
all
room
in the
together.
same room.
Here's my logistical thought, and I'm sure you thought the same thing, is like, there's no way they can get everybody in the same room at the same time. There's gonna be some very I'm sure the production will do it well, like the post-production of it all, where I'm like, there's gonna be some, like, very, well-placed cuts where certain people might be in this
I'm
corner.
trying to think.
There's
I'm like,
no way. I like Lin-Manuel Miranda by himself. Like Lin-Manuel Miranda has shown up like more like significant the most significantly in the show of the gods, I think, of any
yeah. I'm
and
just thinking of who
there's no
we
way.
have and if they maybe. I
It's
think
gonna
it would be a
I
very
follow him
expensive
out.
day.
It will be very interesting to see the
Who
gods
to
dynamic
get.
with each other.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I don't know. I think Athena has a lot to answer for so far in the show. But we also haven't actually seen Athena yet. Like, I think a lot of people are very pissed, and I understand, and I
Yeah,
get it, but I am also an Athena child myself,
me
like,
too.
as we know of each other. We see each other. We
It's
see each other.
terrible week for Athena children.
Uh, so I'm like, I understand that she's 0 for 2 right now, but
I
we
feel like
technically haven't heard her yet. Like, we've met the other ones, and we haven't in terms of we met Zeus, we've met Poseidon. We have heard of Annabeth or of Athena through Annabeth
yeah,
in season 1 in that moment where Athena does not lets Echidna in, but
that's crazy. That was crazy actually.
through an action, but, like, technically an action, and I'm not defending it, but I'm just like, these are all, like, passive the same thing happens here where it's like, through
Yeah,
Athena's lack of action, the Sirens are able to pose as her.
yeah,
So, we are seeing Athena through the lens of what she has failed to do like, what she has not done. We have yet to see Athena through what she actually says or does. So
yeah,
if and when we see that in season 3, let's see how it goes. We know how it goes in the books, but let's see how
yeah.
it goes in the show. So,
I
listen,
find it.
I'm not an Athena defender, but listen, I'm me and Annabeth. I'm like, that's my mom. I'm like, I can't I'm trying to hold out a little bit of hope because also, right, again, like we said, technically she's the only black woman in this cast in the God cast right now, and I would rather not have the only black woman
Be villainized.
be the worst of the just crazy work. It you know
Yeah, that's probably like I said that I would hold back, like, what I was saying until I see her depiction, but because we've seen her on screen, but we haven't
we
seen
haven't seen
her
her. That's what I'm
autonomy
saying.
yet, then
Yeah,
I'm like, I can't say whatever or not. Like, we haven't seen like, it's really
exactly.
going to be how they write her in season 3.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, I agree. I agree. And I think people who are making a lot of big sweeping statements, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know.
She wasn't even supposed to be in this book technically, so,
Yeah,
like,
I'm like, she wasn't even supposed to be in that season 1 scene either.
no.
They're kind of, they're establishing a certain kind of precedent here that they didn't have to do, but they're choosing to do it. So I'm like, where is this going? Like, what
Yeah,
is I kind of similarly to the Rachel and Aphrodite of it all. I'm like, I need to see all of these things together to really make an assessment on how I feel about it because I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not gonna be out here dogging on Athena yet, because I think what we've seen, I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying we're seeing it through
Somebody else's lens.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
double, and it's also a double negative. It's like
Yeah.
we have yet to see actually action from Athena. We're just seeing inaction, and the
Mhm.
inaction is a negative, but it's not, like it's not quite enough of a statement on her character and what she actually intends or believes. It is what she does not intend to do and what she does not want to step in on. So we don't know, but who knows? Maybe season 3 could come out looking crazy, and then I'm gonna retract all of this.
All I
But
know is that her and Percy's beef is going to be generational. It is going to be hilarious to
Walker's
witness.
gonna come and be like, You have a lot to answer for, lady," and we'll see. We'll see.
Knowing especially who's playing at the it's so funny to like even imagine what that scene is going to look like or just be, especially since we know Athena is the reason why Percy doesn't say anything to Annabeth at the end of season 3. So I wonder if they're going to change that and there's going to be another angle that we see or
I think they're
witness.
gonna change it in some way, but I
Yeah.
think it'll still, similarly to the Sirens scene, I think they understand that, again, we'll see if I'm proven right or wrong, but I think they know that this is the point that we have to get to is Annabeth
Mhm.
making the choice to go for immortality or not, or go for the hunters or not, in the same way that Percy is also deciding to go for immortality or not. These are the two linchpin moments later
Yeah.
on, and so how we get to them will probably change, but I think we'll get to them. So I don't know if it'll be the same dynamic and lead up and dialogue and internal, especially again, so much of it is internal, for Percy, in those scenes. So I don't know how
Yeah.
they'll translate it, but I again am hopeful from what we've seen so far that we'll get there in a way that makes sense, for the
Yeah.
show.
I
So
guess going into it, I, I can ask, like, what do you? 'Cause we are stepping into unknown territory. We know the gist of everything that's about to take place, but from what it looks like, we're going to be stepping into these next 3 episodes of kind of unknown territory with how they go about it. What are you most looking forward to? Is like how the story is setting up and taking place.
I think the thing I'm most looking forward to is what I think what has been teased, with the soundtrack dropping early,
Yeah.
the last track being What Really Happened. I think we're gonna get a little more of the, what actually was going through, what is not. We've already seen a flashback of Annabeth and Thalia and Luke, in that moment before, Thalia's turned into a tree. Um, but I think we're gonna get that again or something like it, and from the perspectives that Annabeth was too young to see or understand,
Yeah.
to set up season 3 and Thalia returning. And I'm looking forward to that because I am really excited by the casting for Thalia. I think Tamara Smart is so perfect.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And Thalia being British is great. I enjoy it. I think Black British culture and the sort of attitude that she's bringing to this character, but also that's Thalia's attitude, but a little bit extra sauce, is very fun. And again, Black British culture is the birthplace of punk, so
Yeah.
I'm also looking forward to whatever the race to the end is, because again, we've
Yeah.
seen the teasers of the Annabeth and Grover racing to with the fleece to go somewhere while everybody's fighting. And then we also see what looks like Percy getting somehow zapped in a field when
Yeah.
he's fighting. And my thought, as many other people in the fandoms thought, is that Thalia wakes up and doesn't know what's going on and zaps him because she sees him fighting with Luke. I think that's a really fun theory. I like that theory. I'm not a gambling woman, but if I was, I'd probably put money on that because it makes sense. So we'll see. Those are things that I think I'm looking forward to. I'm always looking forward to more Annabeth. I'm always looking forward to more of her journey. I think there's opportunities for these really powerful moments, again, tied to both of the other things I just said, towards the end of the season. But I think next episode is gonna be a Polyphemus episode, and
Yeah.
I mean, we know it's gonna be a Polyphemus episode, and I got really very little idea what's gonna happen in that episode. Honestly, I have a vague sketch of a thought and nothing else.
All I know is that I do briefly remember, I think Tyson is going to be back in this episode, in this next
Yes.
episode.
Oh, yes. Oh, and we're gonna get, Rainbow, probably.
Rainbow,
Yeah.
yeah.
Everyone was like, "I can't believe we didn't get Rainbow," and
It
there's so
was
much
like the
more to
first
this point.
episode. Everybody's like,
I'm like,
okay.
"Relax, guys." We see the rainbow in the credits, like, we very clearly see it, a rainbow hippocampi in the credits. Relax. Relax. There's no chill anywhere. I was like, once again, if they had cut it, I would not have lost sleep, but also, they're clearly gonna do it. Relax.
Yeah. I was like, do
So
you know how much it costs to VFX? That whole thing? They said, we got one episode, we can do this. We got to make it count.
I'm like, chill, everybody. But yeah, no, it makes sense. So we're gonna see that. That'll be fun. I'm
Yeah.
always glad to see Daniel as Tyson. I think he's
Mhm.
very sweet and he's done such a great job with that character. Um, I will be glad to see him back and to see see Percy's relief when Tyson is alive. Because God knows the kid doesn't need any more guilt on him.
He needs a win. They need
He's
a
already,
win.
he's already wrecked this episode, but we know that like episode 7 and 8 have there's gonna be a lot of new stuff that happens in 7
Yeah.
and 8 that they have not really teased in any. I mean, they teased, but not like in the promo materials, but like
Yeah, we didn't
they
know the
not talked about.
context.
Yeah, so we'll see. But good luck.
Yeah. All I desire for episode 7, which I think is going to be when if they're back into Princess Andromeda, is for Allison to be jumped by Clarice and
Oh, period.
Annabeth. I kind of need that to happen.
Well, I guess we've seen the scene and the promo, one of the trailers of Annabeth and Clarice fighting
Like
side by
I was
side.
like, please
So
be
you're right.
Allison.
You're you're you know what? And I support that. And I will sign on to that camp. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that as a theory. Yeah. I think like you said, well, Luke is somehow going to kidnap Annabeth. To what end and for what purpose and what conversations might ensue. And
Yeah.
and the other thing is let me check what I'm about to say before I say it and sound dumb. But I'm pretty sure we haven't seen or heard from Kronos directly in this.
Oh, we haven't gotten a Chronos Dream yet, so we gotta
Yeah,
get
so
that
like
soon.
what's going on there? That
Yeah.
will probably be episode 7 if they're back on the Andromeda. Because I'm like, what? Because we know they keep reusing the scene of Kronos bursting into the cabin at
Yeah.
Montauk in the promo materials, um, as the Kronos tease. So I'm like, are we gonna get a new Kronos stream? Is Kronos gonna talk to Annabeth if Annabeth's the one kidnapped and stuck on the Princess Andromeda?
That'd be crazy.
Are we gonna see the Luke, um, you know, I like the transformation, the vibe, the
Uh,
kind of like indication in the face and or body that Kronos is going to start speaking through Luke. Because if I remember correctly,
I think
that's
it's
what's
book 4
happening.
when everything hits the fan.
Yeah, but we're not there
There
there.
yet. No,
Like
no, no.
stuff, there's stuff that starts happening around this. And
Yeah, because
yeah.
he's already talking to Luke like he's
Yeah.
able to talk to Percy.
So I'm curious how I don't know. We know that Kronos whispers to Percy and
Yes.
through his dreams and blah blah. I don't know. I am wondering if the show will play any part of that hand because I think if you want to continue to make Kronos the big bad of the big bads of it all, we know that as the audience and we know that as book readers, but I think let's say if I'm like a new fan of the show and like I'm watching it for the first time, I don't know if at this point in the season I'm really reminded of what Kronos is and what
Yeah.
it means for the show. So I have to assume they have to have some sort of like real nod to it. But if Percy's not on Andromeda to be spoken to, who and how would Kronos manifest or talk to? Maybe Luke. Like what would it look like? So we'll see.
Yeah. I had so many unknowns, which I'm actually very excited for. I like going into something being like, I have no clue how they're going to do this,
Yeah,
and I'm
I really
excited to
enjoy
see.
it. I really enjoy having no thoughts, head empty. Like, I think there's just very few media things that I'm able to consume that way these days, and I really like that it's this way.
I ask every guest, what is their rating out of 5 stars of the episode? So I'm curious what your rating is.
Oh, this is the worst question. I hate rating things. I have a
Oh,
book,
Big Bid, yeah.
that Instagram that I run, and I dread rating. Like, I avoid I write 5 paragraphs before I have to rate something. I'd rather write an essay instead of rating a thing. I will say in the context of the season, I think it is, like, top 3 or top 2 episodes for me. I'll put it like,
Okay.
so far, season so far. So who knows what the back half will do to me, but I think it's not, like, my most favorite episode of this season, but I think it is extremely well done. I think it was what I wanted it to be in its totality
Yeah.
when looked at overall. I think the Clarice and Grover of it all was not something I thought was unnecessary. But I think the moments that perhaps it interjected were kind of interesting. It slowed the pacing slightly, but I understand why we had to do it. I will be curious in season 3 if we get cut-ins to other characters who are missing, Annabeth.
Yeah.
The way we've gotten cut-ins to Grover, which is not to say I don't think the cut-ins to Grover are bad, but it's like, I'm like, it's an interesting way that they've kind of decided to structure in the, "Hey, let's check in on Grover stuck in Polyphemus' Mrs. Cave" vibe,
Yeah.
uh, with the sort of main plot of Percy and Annabeth going through the Sea of Monsters. So, but I really liked the episode. I had a lot of thoughts, and I loved it a lot. I think the performances are really great. Both excited and scared for what the back half of the season will bring.
Me too. Me too. I agree. I think I had this thought of like in terms of like A B storyline. I think in the whole season context, I agree with the episode being up there. But I think in terms of like an episode as a whole, I go back and forth because of I would call like the editing of the pacing of it all.
Yeah, I agree. That's exactly what I was. You're probably gonna say it better than I did, but yes.
Yeah, but I think this episode is a really good thesis of why they need to have longer episodes in the next season. And I really hope because I know at the end of the day, this is a big, like, honestly the truth. It's a network thing.
Here's my thought is that like you said, I know it's a network thing. This
Yeah.
episode order, these are all network decisions. And by network, unfortunately, that now means streamer, with Disney Plus. And I think the
Yeah.
problem with Disney Plus is because it's not a network, right? In the same way that we know networks usually traditionally
Because
operate
it's yeah.
because it's a streamer, is that Disney Plus isn't really even the priority for Disney, like, and I think that's the there's so many political things happening,
Yeah.
corporate politics wise, but let's see, I'm hoping, I agree, I think we all know, critics and fans of the show alike, we all agree that the show needs longer episodes. I hope so. I think this episode, like you said, is a good example of what they could have done with a longer episode. Who knows? This is what they did. It's good. It's still really good and cohesive and well performed and well acted. Lots of great moments, but yeah, I think there are certain aspects of it where I'm like, I,
Yeah.
I wish that some certain things had a little more room to breathe.
Same.
Sure.
I agree. I agree. I think another 2-3 minutes could have really helped a lot of and this is the longest episode of the season so far, but I think another 2 or 3 minutes could have really solidified a lot of stuff that took place.
Yeah. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I to wrap this up, I'm really excited, and I'm really excited for the rest of the season and to see your thoughts and everybody else's thoughts. If people want to hear from you, if they want to hear your thoughts when you say them, or just anything else that you put out there, where can they find you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at being a bookworm, where worm is spelled WYRM. Um, and I am posting about books, particularly fantasy, and about working in publishing, and vibes, and Virgo, overthinker, overachiever vibes. And I also am still on Twitter X. I post there kind of, mostly am retweeting, interacting. I've had a lot of fandom love and community that I've found there, and so I feel like unfortunately I'll never give Twitter up entirely until Elon snatches it from my cold dead hands, which he's trying
Unfortunately,
to do,
same.
which
Yeah.
he's really trying to do. So he might succeed, who knows? But I'm also there, same handle on Twitter. And yeah, I'm also on TikTok, but not really. So you can find me in any of those places. If you want to read any of my writing, my thesis is available anywhere you find academic papers. It is not like publicly available, but if you are in any sort of academic scholarly system, you can download it. Um, I have an article I'm really excited about that I can't talk about yet, but it's coming this year. And it is a continuation of all the things I talked about in this podcast about fandom and Black girls in fantasy and even Legendborn cycle. So keep an eye out. It's a thing I'm really, really excited about, and I think people who, if you like any of the things I talked about in this episode that are Percy Jackson related and also Percy Jackson adjacent, you will enjoy this article. So keep an eye out if you follow me on any of my platforms.
And with that, we're closing out this episode. If you want to follow me and any of my platforms, I'm Melanated Wise Girl on everywhere except the Twitter X app, where I'm just Melon Wise Girl because of character limit. If you like this podcast, you like this episode, be sure to like and subscribe to the Melanated Wise Girl YouTube channel, or like and subscribe to the Melanated Wise Girl After Show on all places that you listen to your podcasts. And rate it, maybe 5 stars if you'd like, or if you don't like, whatever suits your fancy. And with that, we'll see you next week with the next one. Goodbye.